If you're celebrating a special occasion or just love fine dining, you're in the right place. Come experience the crown jewel of South Point restaurants, Michael's Gourmet Room.
Welcome.
With over 600 different types of wines and magnificent dishes prepared tableside, you'll revel in the rich classic Vegas decor and the best black tie service in the world. This intimate gourmet room has earned accolades galore. Come to Michael's Gourmet Room for an unforgettable dining experience. Another famous restaurant is the Silverado Steakhouse, where you'll find the charm and service that discerning patrons require. From top quality steaks and chops to fresh seafood and desserts, you'll love the award-winning wine list and menu at Silverado Steakhouse. Steak lovers have even more options with primarily prime rib. Catering to hearty appetites, the menu features a variety of flavorful prime rib cuts, dry-aged to ensure tenderness, and then seasoned and slowly roasted. Although prime rib is our specialty, it's not the only thing on the menu. There's something for everyone. And if you're craving a taste of Italy, come experience delicious Italian cuisine and the attentive service at Don Vito's. Our culinary team starts with the freshest ingredients and transforms them into traditional favorites. And don't forget Italian desserts. Don Vito's. Savor the taste of Italy. Finally, if sushi is more your style, join us at the popular Zenshin Asian restaurant and sushi bar, where we're serving up the freshest sashimi, nigiri, and sushi rolls. And beyond the sushi, an exciting contemporary Asian cuisine menu. Plus a variety of specialty drinks, Japanese and domestic beer, wine, and sake. Balance your hunger with Zenshin.
Welcome in. It is Football Frenzy on a Friday here on Sports by the Book. Happy to be with you as my voice just decides to do whatever the hell that was to begin the show.
What are you, 12 years old?
What a great start. Wow.
You know, I just want to tell you, the next thing is you're probably going to start seeing funny hairs all over your body. Just saying.
It's been a while since I had done a McDonough like that. My goodness. Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo. McCormick's going to end up hosting the show by midway through this.
I know he's going to try to poison me with M&Ms again, like he did last week.
Gentlemen, we have not the most intriguing college card, which means that we'll probably have anarchy again like we did a few weeks ago. An NFL card that, look, it's actually a full NFL card, a rare no bye week for this deep into the season. And Jimmy Vacarro, of course, will join us in an hour, too. So who knows where we'll go when Jimmy gets here in an hour. So it'll be a lot of fun. Let's dive in right away, actually. And, Chris, a game you actually brought up with Frank Nicotero earlier in the day on Punchlines, noon to 1 on Punchlines FN, of course, out of this studio. Louisville goes to Chestnut Hill to take on Boston College tonight. Chris, it really feels like the Eagles' magic has run out. This is a toggler, as our friend Vinny says. 7 now on the Cardinals on the road against the Eagles with a total of 53.5.
Yeah, not one of my official plays, but I do like Louisville. If you're out there betting, please make sure, if you're laying the price, make sure you lay the 7. If you're taking, make sure you take 7.5, because this is one of those games, of course, and Vinny loves to talk about the togglers, but, that number comes into play an awful lot, so, anyway. I do like that, but you kind of hit it, Jeff. I think Bill O'Brien, I love the guy. I think he's a terrific coach, but he only had so much talent on this team to get the most out of it, and they crested, and now they're on their way down. But I think Louisville, a very solid team. Jeff, you mentioned earlier that they lost only to some very, very good teams and lost close games to teams like Miami. Who else did you mention? Notre Dame.
So Louisville's 4-3, and their 3 losses have come against Notre Dame by a touchdown, SMU by a touchdown, and Miami by a touchdown.
All top teams.
I know that's 3 of your top 15 right there, basically.
Yeah, I think
Chris.
You're right, yeah.
And look, this is a good Louisville team, and quite frankly, I thought they should have beat Miami. That was a very weird game. Miami, for the 3rd time in 4 weeks, got the benefited from a a questionable overturn or uphold by the review room in the ACC. But look, Vinny, 7 on this one with Louisville. Again, like what you said, 3 losses to top 15 power-rated teams by both the guys at the end of the day.
And that's what you want to measure or take into consideration, too, with your handicap, right? What they have identical records, but to your points, guys, you have three losses to teams that are in the playoff discussion. Yeah. So, but now you have teams also that are trying to get to that magic number of 6 for the rest of the bowl games and prolong their season there for recruiting purposes and things like that. So, but yeah, this one here is no real movement on the total at all. Total's holding steady at 53.5. Just like Chris hit it on the head. If you're a Louisville backer and you're going to bet this one, lay to 7. Don't lay 7.5, but take 7.5 if you. With BC, and from our side of the counter, we just don't want to see a 7.
Exactly.
Always have to throw in the
I
other
didn't
side
say
of the
it this time. You can't look at me.
Yeah, I know, but you were thinking it.
I was actually thinking about that total real quick, where I actually like both of these offenses. So, and we've talked about these Louisville totals have come in way lower than the SMU game went way over. Last week there was almost 100 points in that game with them in Miami. Louisville's offense is good, and look, if Castellanos is not turning the ball over, Boston College's offense is also pretty reasonable.
Can help
as well. That can help you with the total as well.
That's right.
Hey, if Castellanos gives the defense 14, 10 points, that works. It doesn't matter who scores when you have an over.
Just ask Syracuse.
Oh my God, that's a crazy. I really wasn't watching, but I was getting texts. I still got all my friends back in Pittsburgh, and Lou Vargin, who used to work here all those years. Lou texted us, me and Nick back there. He said, that Pitt had 31 points and 81 yards of offense.
Well, when
pick sixes.
Well, when the opposing quarterback throws 3 pick sixes in 28 minutes, young McCormick in the corner there was freaking out in the first half because he had the under. He got there.
Did you get there?
He got there. Barely. Even though with Pat Narduzzi at the end of the game, he's had 4 touchdowns. He's running the hurry-up offense with his backup quarterback.
I wasn't watching.
Chris, it was classic Narduzzi just being a jerk for no reason, more so than anything. But Pitt, hey, look, Pitt is 7-0. I don't know how good they really are, but they keep winning. We'll get to another team that keeps winning that I don't think is any good either a little bit later in the show as well. Looking at you, a team with 3 letters that may be a religious school in a little bit. So we'll get to them a little bit later. The second game tonight is a conference matchup. That's an 11 o'clock Eastern time kickoff after game 1 of the World Series, by the way, on Big Fox. And somehow you ended up with Tri-State against L.A. anyway in both of these matchups.
How do you like that?
How do you like that? You see, they knew what they were doing the whole time. Rutgers goes on the road to USC here tonight. Trojans are 14. Look, the Trojan season for doing anything of note is over. 3-4, just a back-to-back, 3 straight losses where you lose a game to Minnesota you have no business losing. You have Penn State dead to rights up 2 scores below that game. Yeah. And then last week, dominated for most of the game and found a way to lose against Maryland. And now you get Rutgers, who has lost their defense the last few weeks, where Rutgers, after losing to Nebraska 14-7, has given up 77 points the last 2 games combined. And the opponents were Wisconsin and UCLA.
Wow.
The 35 against UCLA might be the most damning thing I've seen from anyone.
Really? More than Wisconsin?
Well, Wisconsin's at least playing well right now, but UCLA is not good. I actually like the total on the early numbers, but I think the market has done the correct thing here and just banged this thing to the over. Not as aggressively here from the from the openers on Sunday night for some shops, but 56-57. You are off of a key number of 56, which obviously is a key total number.
Yeah, you know what's well, you and I joked about this before the show that they brought Rutgers into the Big Ten to get that New York TV market. Yeah. But meanwhile, they have them going at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it's insane.
I don't know. But by the way,
it's Friday.
Hey,
stay up late.
There's
game will end at 2:45 a.m. Eastern, probably.
This is a pretty good night of college football, though.
Yeah,
I mean, that game's not great. But then this last one, I'll let you lead into this one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that last game, no real opinion. Vinny, nothing on your end here with the
only thing is, I see you mentioned those losses, all with fourth quarter leads.
Yes.
Too, on top of it. So you wonder how how things are going to impact Lincoln Riley there.
Yeah, and the fourth one we didn't even mention. I mean, they were leading that Michigan game with less than 2 minutes to go, and Michigan ended up punching it in the end zone late. Again, I don't. No excuse really for USC other than Penn State, but you're up 2 scores in that game. You got to find a way. All right, Boise State goes to UNLV tonight, and this is, as I've jokingly said, I said this a few weeks ago when Syracuse came to town. Now I'll say it again. The biggest game in UNLV football history until these two teams more than likely rematch in the Mountain West title game about 5 weeks from now. You guys are the lowest number in the market now, actually. 3.5 on Boise State, and everywhere else has moved to 4 on this game now, with a total of 64 in this one, with Heisman Trophy favorite Ashton Jeanty coming to town. By the way, I real quick on a stat with Jeanty that I have to bring up. Ashton Jeanty for expected points per play per rush for him this year is at 5.5.
Get out of here.
Or 0.55, I should say.
Okay.
0.55. There's only one quarterback in the country that has a bigger number than that. That's Curtis Rourke of Indiana, who is at 0.61. That's how good Ashton Jeanty's been so far. That 0.55 is a loony bin high number for EPA.
Yeah, but I made this game 3. So we're sitting 3.5. I think we opened at 3.
Yep.
Yes.
We're up to 3.5, but we've kind of gone back and forth a little bit, and I'm sure some of it has to do with the local flavor. But I thought I'm not a UNLV fan. I spent all those years in Reno. I'm a Nevada fan. So I thought that was the right number, and if they bet us one way or the other, then that's the way we'll go. But right now they haven't bet me enough to move me to 4. They made me go from 3 to 3.5, but that's as far as we've gone so far.
What's interesting about this game too, I think it's a bit of a surprise that the total came down initially to some folks and got as low as 63.5, now headed back up. I think this total will continue to go up. There'll be a good representation for both schools, I think, at Allegiant Stadium tonight, so it should be a great atmosphere. And you know what, Chris? We're probably going to need. You might be a UNLV fan tonight.
Yeah, it might be tonight. If that's the way it goes.
Especially if it gets to 4. But total got as low as 63, but now headed back up, and I think that'll continue to rise.
This game feels like a big time over game, even with that high total.
Yeah.
There's still 163.5 left. I think that's good to go over. I think 64 is fine to go over as well. I just have a hard time seeing UNLV being able to slow down Jeanty because no one has been able to slow down Ashton Jeanty so far this year. And you know what? UNLV's offense with Williams in command is more than capable of hanging in a shootout game. We've already seen it basically every game where that UNLV's played since Williams has taken over at the quarterback position. They've been able to be in the mid to high 30s. It may take 40 in order to win this game tonight either way. And again, you imagine that these two teams will meet again in about 6 weeks in a Mountain West title game, just a matter of where the game will be. And the winner of this game will have the inside track to host a Mountain West title game 6 weeks from now. All right, let's go to Saturday. In Vegas rotation number order, we start with a game that in normal circumstance would be a big-time rivalry game. But this year, Florida State is one of the worst in college football. And they're a 21-point underdog at Miami here. And it's weird to say with Miami where, look, I think the Canes have been begging to be beaten for a month now.
They've tried.
You had the 3 straight games for Miami where you had the Hail Mary that wasn't against Virginia Tech. They were in a double-digit hole in that game as well. 38-10 against Cal, come out of that hole and somehow win that game, or 38-13, I should say. And then last week, Cam Ward has what I think they got the call right, but the Cam Ward called on the field a fumble. They overturn it on replay to make it an incomplete pass. Miami ends up scoring a touchdown on the drive to go back up by 2 scores and put the game away against Louisville. Look, we're running out of rope here for Miami to find a loss because they're going to be favored in the remaining 5 games. And after watching Syracuse last night, I don't think Syracuse, which I thought was the most likely loss in these remaining 5 games, is going to be capable of beating this team. But at least for this week, 21.5 to 21 here on this one. So they did take the dog a little bit on this game.
I mean, my numbers came to 24.
Okay.
I think that's more of a reflection on the poor quality of Florida State's play. But I think you're right about Miami really has been walking a tightrope, and they've been on the right end of that, the last month or whatever it is, But they are ripe for a beating. But I just don't think this
Not
team
this week.
can do it. And you talk about Syracuse, Jeff. I'm tossing that game. I mean that
I think you kind of have to, don't you?
That's that's unheard of, and I hate to put those kind of games in my numbers, so I'm just tossing that one. But I still don't know if Syracuse could beat Miami. I guess they'd have a chance, a puncher's chance. But I think, I wouldn't go out and play Miami in this spot. It's still a lot of wood, but I sure wouldn't have Florida State.
You know what's interesting about you have to throw records out when it comes to these rivalry games too, because of still recruiting, but still coaches and programs working on the NIL and the transfer portal and things like that. So and because Miami's kind of walked that tightrope, this is a kind of game too, though, with this kind of with this big number. Some pros, they may look at the first half with the dog, right, Chris? And
sure.
When you can get double digits in a rivalry game like this in the first half, so. And the total really hasn't moved that much. Again, another one I suspect will tick up before it comes down at 54.5.
Look, Florida State had a shot to win last week against Duke. Turnovers did them in. I think they're a little bit better off without Uiagalelei, even though the quarterback play has been suspect, regardless of who's been there this year. This would be a stunner of stunners. I mean, it'd be 9-1 on the money line if Florida State somehow shocked Miami here in this one. Also would do big-time damage to the Canes' at-large hopes in the college football playoff if they were to blow this game.
Just to jump in, Vinny, you talked about the first half. I did a radio show many years ago when kind of first-half betting was just really becoming popular. And he said, I want a 60-minute result. I want to get the whole thing. And I said, I'm looking for a winner.
Right, exactly.
If I can win, if I see an edge in the first half,
right.
I'd bet the first half.
Yeah.
If I don't see an edge, then I wouldn't.
And you can get a decision in half the time.
So you don't have to sweat the second half.
Well, you don't even have to look at time of day versus time of game in that scenario, right, Vinny?
There you go.
There you go. 11.5, by the way, first half on this
First
one.
half, that sounds about right. Yeah.
I you know what? That's one of those where I'm a little backwards. I think I'm more inclined to take Miami first half and then flip around and want the dog in the second half.
There you go.
A lot of these big numbers, these teams do. They take their foot off the gas in the second half and don't in the first half, of course.
Let's keep it in the state of Florida. And now my arch nemesis so far this year, BYU on the road against Central Florida. And this is going to be one of those where a casual bettor or someone who is new to betting looks at this line and is like, what is going on here? Where Central Florida is 3-4. They're starting Ja'Cory Brown, who was their backup quarterback at the beginning of the year. KJ Jefferson hits the bench. Brown played last week in their near upset of Iowa State a week ago. And BYU's undefeated. They're 7-0. They're 11th in the polls. Polls don't make prices, Vinny.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But here, the market has been all about Central Florida in this because you guys didn't open Central Florida as a favorite.
We opened to BYU.
Yeah, you opened
BYU
BYU
too,
as a favorite, but this has been the bettors doing this, taking Central Florida up to a 2.5-point favorite in this game.
I think they've. We're talking about nip and tuck one way or the other, but I think they may have gone a little bit too far. I made BYU 1 in this game. But yeah, listen, write this down as a lesson, folks. Don't listen to these writers, and I see guys on ESPN and Fox and whoever else. They're giving you their picks and all that. These are writers. These are not professional handicappers. Now, I'll tell you, I will say this, though. I was watching Get Up this morning. They had Joe Fortenbaugh on. You could listen to Joe Fortenbaugh.
Oh, absolutely.
Joe Fortenbaugh is a sharp guy.
Yeah.
That's how he got there. He didn't get there by writing a column in the New York Times. Then they said, oh, by the way, you're now our handicapper. No, Joe's legit. But the other guys, don't listen to those guys. And I'm not even saying you listen to us all the time, but at least we're right here.
Right.
And,
we're around it every day.
Yeah, we're here every day. We see the action. We know what's going on. But I think this may have gone a little too far the other way. If I was going to play this game now, I think I would take a money line play on BYU.
Central Florida's been seeing some interest in the last 3 weeks or so, right?
Yeah.
We've seen them get some support.
They played well
BYU
last week. No
definitely. We've had to upgrade them. I mean, they're still undefeated. They've had to walk. They've had some closer games recently as well as the season goes on. But this one to make this much of a move and get to listen, if it gets to 3, we know what's going to happen, right? I mean, that's going to be an easy take for
there.
folks. But and the total, I think this is another one. We bring up the totals because people do bet totals, and at 55.5 on the opener, now down a couple of points. This is the kind of game where I think we'll see some money come in again on as we get closer to kickoff on the over.
I'll say this, and look, I've gotten destroyed going against BYU this year because they just find ways to win or to cover or whatever. I mean, I had an in-game number on Arizona 2 weeks ago, and Fafita threw a pick 6 that didn't even need to happen when the game was already decided. I think this
is your chance to get out,
this
Jeff.
is just fun. They're just BYU is just one of those teams. And look, there's usually a team or two like this a year with me where I just keep going against them. They just find ways to beat me, regardless of what it is. I'm with Chris. I think this has gone a little too far. And I when this line opened at the beginning of the week, I don't remember if you remember this last year when Oklahoma State was in the middle of their just run of unbelievable luck, winning every close game, every break going their way. They went to Central Florida around this time last year and just got annihilated, lost by 5 scores in that game. This has kind of got that same feeling to me a little bit where BYU has gotten every break so far this year. The only difference is BYU's defense is much better than Oklahoma State's defense was a year ago. But, boy, if this gets to 3, I probably will take BYU, which means you should put whatever you got on Central Florida if I'm betting on BYU.
If it gets to 3, don't blink.
Yeah, don't blink. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
Well, I'll tell you this, too. I hope we burned the tapes from the college preview that I did with Paul Stone. I said BYU is going to be one of the worst teams in the country.
But here's the thing with the Big 12, though. This is a few years running now where you get one team that was projected to be a bottom feeder, and then all of a sudden you look up in the end of October and are like, oh, my God, they're 4-1 away from being in Arlington at this point.
Conversely, what did we say about Utah?
Yeah.
That they were going to dominate this year.
It's actually kind of funny. I looked at my ballot that I put because we had the Big 12 credentials for my 1, 2, and 3 teams. The only one that's over 500 in the league right now is Kansas State. Kansas and Utah, who I had at 1 and 3 respectively, have both been monster disappointments.
I might have agreed with you 100% right there, Jeff.
Yeah. All right. Let's do a quick hitter here in a not overly attractive game in the ACC, but it's had a ton of action, and that's North Carolina going to Virginia. Chris, from 6 to 3.5 on this game with Virginia.
Boy, it seems like both these teams have sparked a lot of action, one way or the other, during the course of the season. Jeff, I can't really agree with the move. I like Virginia a lot higher. I'm ashamed to tell you what my numbers came to 8.
Well, that's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah. So, I don't agree at all with the move. I thought Virginia's playing a little bit better football. They started out poorly, but, got better. And Carolina, I don't know. Mac Brown, he has a great record as a coach, but I'm not sure he's a great coach. He's a great assembler of talent. But I'm not sure how much talent he has on this Carolina team. They lost a lot from last year, and I'm not sure how much they've regained. I'd like this number a lot higher, but the handicappers with a lot of money have disagreed with me.
Two teams heading opposite directions, right? I mean, North Carolina has kind of hit some harder times. Virginia playing much better. I think this number goes back up or heads back up towards, I don't know if it'll go back to the opener of 6, but I'm inclined to agree with Chris that there'll be Virginia money tonight, overnight, and again, we're open 24 hours here at South Point. Total holding steady at 59, but I think there'll be Cavalier money as we get closer to tomorrow.
Just throwing this out there, if Virginia's going to make a bowl game, they got to get this game.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have to find one. If let's say they win, they'll be at 5 wins. They'll have to find one more win, and their last 4 games are a trip to Pitt, which looks a lot more difficult than anyone would have expected. A trip to South Bend, good luck.
Okay.
Hosting SMU.
That don't look too easy now either.
And then the big rivalry game against Virginia Tech, and that game's in Blacksburg this year. Yeah. So if Virginia's going to have any shot of getting to that 6th win, they got to get this one here this weekend against North Carolina. Again, there's a reason that teams need to win games down the stretch to get to a bowl. That means they're usually not particularly good. But at least that's something to keep in mind here with Virginia. I'm with you. I think the higher number was better here on this game. All right, the other Virginia team, Virginia Tech, will welcome in Georgia Tech in the ACC. 10.5 on this game. at Lane Stadium with the homestanding Virginia Tech Hokies. Right now favored. Still unknown on Haynes King, the quarterback for Georgia Tech. Does not look great as of right now on the status, and the line kind of tells you that with a north of 10.
Yeah, I think that with that quarterback situation, this is right on my number. Yeah, so I have no real opinion here. Virginia Tech, I think we were thrown a little bit when they lost that first game to Vanderbilt as a 2-touchdown favorite, but they've rebounded nicely since then. And I think the number's right there. No real opinion from me, Vinny.
Yeah, I mean the game's holding steady too, so it's holding. It hasn't moved really that much, if at all. 10.5.
Yeah, not much of an opinion on this game. It's just a matter of for Va Tech, they just have to keep winning football games at this point. They're 4-3 with their schedule. The remainder of the way after this game gets more difficult as well. A trip to the Dome against Syracuse. They get Clemson. They have to go to Duke, who's an upstart team, and then the rivalry game against Virginia. Still would probably find a way to 7 wins.
Yeah.
But
I would have them about a double digits over Virginia at home.
I would agree on that as well.
Yeah.
3-point move to the over.
Yep. That even without Haynes
More
King
movement there
likely.
than the on the side.
Let's keep it in the ACC. Duke hosts SMU. Boy, what a conference matchup that is. But here
Both
you go.
6-1.
This is a pretty good game.
You know
man.
what? This is a very interesting spot for SMU here, at least in my eyes, because we talked about SMU for a while now. Vinny, I know you were high on them at the beginning of the year. Chris, I know you've moved them up exponentially in your power rankings over the last month.
Well, yeah, I trusted. Yeah. I do trust his opinion, and he sold me pretty good on SMU. And first 2 weeks of the season, I thought he was nuts, and then but lately they've come around pretty good. And really, look like one of the best teams in the ACC. They're
look, the last 4 weeks. Last 4 games, 24-point win over TCU. They put 66 on the board in that game. They decimated Florida State like you're supposed to. They went on the road, beat a good Louisville team by a touchdown as a touchdown underdog in that game. And then they annihilated Stanford a week ago, winning by 30 in a game that was really not even that competitive.
A lot of money on the dog in that game, too.
Yeah. People like betting Stanford at home. It hasn't really worked this year.
Not a very good home team. No. They're just not.
No, when you're playing in front of 2,000 people, you're not much of a home field advantage. Sorry, Stanford fans. Don't mean to throw the pot.
They're drinking wine and eating some fine cheese.
Yeah. So the wine and cheese crowd. But look, I think Duke's magic runs out here. I think this is a bad matchup for Duke. Their defense, more likely than not, gets overrun in this game by SMU's offense to me. And look, for Duke, Manny Diaz has done an amazing job. They're more likely than not going to go to a solid bowl game in year one when they were projected to be one of the worst teams in this conference. Job well done. But they've been relatively lucky, all things considered. Turnover differentials near the top in the country. I think SMU protects the football. They win this game by 3 scores. I like the Ponies laying it on the road.
This is one of those games I made at 10. Now we're at 11.5. I like that number better.
Right.
I really do.
It's still heading up. Yeah. I mean, the loser of this game is pretty much out of the conference discussion.
They're done.
So.
Yep. Yeah, for SMU, I'll just say this. If you win this game tomorrow, you get Pitt next weekend in what is basically an elimination game.
Where's that at?
That's in Dallas.
That's in Dallas. Yeah,
that's basically an elimination game for going to the potentially going to the ACC title game. Their last 3 games are Boston College, Virginia, and Cal. I mean, 11-1 is in play for the Ponies here.
Very
which
winnable.
Would be a pretty hard team to figure because that loss to BYU.
Well, BYU's better than we thought.
Yeah, I know, but BYU would also probably be ahead of them in the pecking order from the college football playoff perspective. You know, I think SMU now is better than BYU.
Well, the committee will pay attention to the head-to-head.
Yeah, I know they will for sure. All right, Auburn, Kentucky's up next. Auburn just keeps finding ways to lose games, guys. Yeah. They were in complete command last week against my alma mater. They had a 2-score lead going into the 4th quarter. They blow the game. They don't even cover the closing numbers, losing by 4. Kentucky, on the other hand, by the way, Auburn's 2-5. Kentucky's 3-4, as we all expected going into this game. The Wildcats, since their upset of Ole Miss, lost to Vanderbilt, and then got run out of the building last week by Florida. By the way, credit to Billy Napier for getting that train back on the tracks, because that looked like he wasn't even going to make it to the cocktail party.
I think a lot of us thought that.
Yeah. Really, honestly, a good a good coaching job, as wild as that seems. 2.5 to 1.5 on this game. I like the underdog outright. Obviously not the best in the number now, but the key with Auburn is protect the football. Granted, this is not the greatest of defenses to protect the football against because they do force turnovers, this Kentucky defense.
My numbers came to Kentucky 1.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not much of a play. Half a point. That's all. Yeah. So not much of a play at all. But, yeah, I mean, at some point, you got to figure Auburn's going to figure out a way to hold on to the football and win one of these games. By the way, did you realize Mike, well, you're in Kentucky, where your wife is. Mike Stoops, he's one of, the highest paid coaches in the country.
Mark Stoops is making about $8.5 million. Mark Stoops is making about $8.5 million a year right now.
He's doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost as much as us.
Almost, yeah. When did we get a cut and pay, Vinny?
It depends on this game. We need to win this game.
After the last 2 weeks, yeah.
Let's go to the Meadowlands next. Notre Dame playing Navy. Navy's technically the home team. Let's be real. This will probably be a partisan crowd to the Irish.
Like every week?
Yeah. Well, the service academies, by the way, play Notre Dame. Army plays Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium in a few weeks. And now, of course, this game is at the home of the Giants and the Jets. Oh, maybe we'll have capable offenses for once in this game in that stadium. 14 now, and it's really been one-way traffic on Notre Dame more so than anything. From 12 to 14. Total's also been bet down from 52.5 to 50.5 in this one, Chris.
Yeah, I know you and I are going to disagree on this one. I like the favorite. I like Notre Dame here. I just think they just have too much talent. I mean, Navy, God bless them. And I told you, ever since I started following football, I've always rooted for the service academy teams. I just think, not the most talented in the world, but these guys always play hard. And, I've said it a million times. You watch these guys play football and you're glad they're the ones defending our country. But I just don't think they have the talent to stick with Notre Dame. Notre Dame, I don't know what the hell happened in Northern Illinois, but it was just one of those crazy things. But this team, they're pretty good. They're well coached. They got a lot of talent. And, probably, Jeff, once they kick off, I might even be rooting for Navy in this one just because that's where my heart's going to lie. But evaluating and, trying to make a good number and then, set up the joint to have a good day, I do like Notre Dame in this game.
Yeah, we're definitely going to need Navy in this game. And, when Notre Dame plays the academies too, they can't play on, even though it's a home game for Navy, there's no room. There's not enough room for people to attend, and that's why they have them in football stadiums. Or in the case of Army, it's going to be in Yankee Stadium. Both, by the way, very familiar to Notre Dame, right? These locations, so it's kind of a routine thing, but it's also good for the sport, I guess. Overall, the fact that the academies are both very good this year. This game, I mean, the fact that Notre Dame plays both of them is impactful to the playoff picture. I mean, you look at it today, 12 spots on the line. There's 35 teams, well, closer to 40 that are mathematically alive and having both academies in there. Even though they have to play each other, which, by the way, they could face each other in the conference title game before the traditional Army-Navy game,
right.
Which is going to be interesting. But I think the bids come out actually between those two matchups.
Yep, they would.
So, but this is there's a lot on the line here. If Navy's going to keep it close or have a chance here, they're going to have to be able to control the pace just like they do they've done with every other win they've got so far, which is to their credit, 6 of them. So,
Vinny, to one of your points about the conferences, I think that's what really has made this a much better year among everything else.
Yeah,
because you got a team like SMU. Well, they'd have been written off in week 1.
Yes,
but now they're still in the hunt. I mean, listen,
Absolutely.
If they win the ACC, they could get a home playoff.
They'll get a bye.
They'll get a bye
in that
Well, not necessarily, but they, Notre Dame could still get in there. But,
SMU against Boise State, because Notre Dame, remember with the rules, Notre Dame, the best Notre Dame can do is number 5.
That's the best they can do.
The best they can do. They can't.
That's not bad because they don't have a conference game, so they essentially get a bye. If they make it, which I think they will.
Yeah, I think if Notre Dame wins out, Notre Dame's going and probably hosting a playoff.
They'll host the game. They'll host it. Yeah.
But you look at teams like SMU or the winner of the Iowa State Kansas State game, most likely, could be playing for a home game. But I mean, I'll tell you, I have, and I can't remember the exact year, but Stanford played Northwestern the first week of the season. A bad Northwestern team. Lost in an ugly game. It was like
McCaffrey year,
14-10, maybe something like that. Ugly. They won the rest of the league. They won the rest of their games. So they finished 11-1. They didn't make, I think it might even been before the playoffs, but they did not make the playoffs. And also, man, if they'd had Cal Davis or Sac State week 1, instead of playing a legitimate game,
no doubt about it,
against, they'd have been in the national championship. And I am a Stanford fan, so I root for them. But I just think, these games, winning your conference, I think is just such a much, much better thing for college football.
Well, one of the things, the good thing, too, is with the conference realignments, what came about was, listen, you can't have a team they had to expand the playoff because to have a loss on the first week or the second week and to be eliminated is,
ridiculous.
I mean,
Ohio State's
as it
playing
is,
Oregon in the regular season.
Yeah. And that's what's made for better matchups during the course of the season. And, not just the first week, the kickoff week, and then waiting till, the Premier Bowl games or who makes the Final Four. It's going to be controversial. Somebody's going to be on the outside looking in again this year, even with 12 teams, but there's less of a, you're still going to get more quality, I think, in the fact that more teams are alive for a longer period of time. Certainly better for our business. And the fact that there's that many more playoff games, which will be bet just like NFL playoff games, Chris, let's face it, given the time that they're – look at the dates of those games. What are they, the 20th and 21st, and then New Year's Eve and New Year's Day?
Yep.
Phenomenal
Well,
business.
the other thing I think we're going to see is more games in the beginning of the year.
Yes.
More out-of-conference
more meaningful,
games.
yeah.
Let's say you're Texas. Maybe you want to play Ohio State or Penn State, and it's not going to be a conference game. Hey, let's line up and see how good we are. Let's do that. Doubt. And I think we're going to get more of that.
Better.
Going back to the Big Ten now, let's go to the Battle of Michigan. Michigan hosts Michigan State. The carousel ride has been a ride from hell for the Michigan quarterback position so far this year. 4.5 with the Wolverines at home, down from 6. That's actually the market high right now is that 4.5 you guys have. I like the dog at the 6. Now that we're at 4.5, I don't know if I can get there on Michigan State because this Michigan quarterback situation. I just watched what happened last week with Illinois. They kept getting in the red zone and they kept turning the ball over, kept taking sacks, or just something stupid basically happened on every drive into the red zone last week for Michigan in their 2-score loss to Illinois.
I thought the 6 was a good number.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be most likely rooting for Michigan in this game. I'm going to be okay with that. But Michigan State, a little better than I thought, a little better than my projections at the beginning of the year. Yeah. I mean, they got rid of that debacle with, what was his name?
Mel Tucker.
Mel Tucker.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't end well for Mel. But I think they made the right move. And this guy's done a good job, getting that ship straightened out. So a little better than I thought. Michigan, a lot worse than I thought. I think I don't know if this is one of my games of the year or not. But if it was, I had this number much, much higher. But listen, you got to make adjustments as you go during the course of this season.
Another rivalry game, right? So a lot of things you have to kind of put aside, records, I guess, but still, both teams still alive also for a bowl game. And Michigan's out of the playoff picture. It's just amazing how much they lost, right? And you would have thought that they could have reloaded, but that didn't happen. Coaching change probably had something to do with that, not taking anything away from the staff that's there now. But once Harbaugh left, it's everybody kind of take, okay, wait, what's going to happen? Let's take a wait-and-see approach. When you look at it, Michigan, along with Washington, who also lost a lot of players, and not only to graduation in the draft, which, by the way, those two teams combined had close to 20, I think, NFL players drafted by the NFL. So, you look at that, and so when that happens and 2 really successful head coaches leave, it's, what's going on here? We're looking – Alabama's feeling that a little bit too. I mean, they had a lot of transfer out. So portal kind of worked against these Michigan this year. This game could help them get right back into the better standing and the better position with the portal.
Let's go to another Big Ten game here, guys. The We Beat USC game. Maryland on the road in Minneapolis to take on Minnesota. It's 5. It's 46.5. My rule of thumb is I don't think either of these teams are all that good, even though they beat USC. It would only be a take of points with Maryland in this spot. But even with that dramatic comeback led by Billy Edwards a week ago for Maryland, I just wonder how much is left in the tank after beating USC in that fashion and now having to go on the road to take at least a hard-nosed team in Minnesota.
Yeah, I kind of like Minnesota in this game. I'm not crazy about him, but I think PJ Fleck. I figured him out really through his recruiting when he was at Western Michigan. So he's made me a lot of money. Used to back in the day. So I think I still have a little bit of affection for him. And as a Penn State guy, I don't have much affection for Maryland. So I kind of like Minnesota in this game. But my numbers do come higher.
Jeff, you said you like Maryland, Jeff?
It'd be a lean, nothing strong.
I mean, it's the highest number, so it's trending towards.
It is trending up
take,
a little bit,
if that's the case. So game opened 4, and I went to 4, but that was very early in the week, and now here we are on the weekend. It's been all about the home squad.
Let's go to another Big Ten game. Roger Long has in our chat asking about our thoughts on Indiana's quarterback situation this week because Tavon Jackson, who was pressed into duty last week, is going to start this week. Curtis Rourke is out with whatever's ailing his thumb now. And College Game Days in Bloomington for the first time ever. This went from 7 to 5.5 on this game with Indiana. A home favorite in this one is the Hoosiers. Just look to continue this magical ride, 7-0. If they win this game, they'll be 8-0 for the first time in a very long time. And look, you'll be favored in East Lansing the week after this. You'll be favored at home against Michigan. What a sentence that is. And then, look, you're playing Ohio State in the shoe, potentially at 10-0. I mean, it's pretty amazing if Indiana can handle their business this week as a 5.5-point home favorite against the Washington team that has been completely all over the map this year. Their good's been quite good. Their bad has been as bad as anyone in the Big Ten other than Purdue.
Looks like the handicappers are not expecting that much of a great performance out of the Indiana quarterback because this has gone down. My numbers figure higher. I thought the 7 was a good opening number. And I will say this. I don't know if our good friend Dave Damashek is listening. Dave's an Indiana grad. He's also a big Pitt fan. He's been pumping it for a month. Those two are going to meet in the first round. Damashek will be impossible to live with after that. But, that's college football. Crazy stuff happens. I kind of like Indiana. I thought the opening number was good, and it's come back against it. But, Cignetti, and I may be kind of paraphrasing or quoting him. He says, all I do is win.
He's right, though.
And that's all this guy does. He just wins everywhere he goes. And, who had Indiana penciled in as, what are they, number 13 in the country? Is that what I'm saying?
That's the 8 people, yeah.
The 8 people. Okay. Yeah. They're not in my power ratings. They're nearly that high. But they are pretty good. I got them rated fairly high.
A legit top 20 team, I would say, power rating-wise, yeah.
We talked about it last week with the test that we're going to go get against the Nebraska
Flying
defense.
Colors pass.
And let me say that you don't want to overreact from that game, but when you look at how they handled Nebraska in a dominant fashion, and then when Rourke went out, they still managed to get the job done. So I think they answered a lot of questions last week. I don't think their coach allows them to start believing the headlines. So I think they're pretty focused. I think this number probably comes back up, and if it doesn't, you're going to lay the best number on the superior team here. Again, we just talked about Michigan and Washington losing so much to graduation and the transfer portal last year. This is a tough spot for Washington, in my opinion. So, look, Indiana here is going to start getting some money this afternoon, this evening, right through the night until tomorrow.
Yeah, this will only be the Hoosiers for me after going against them last week, and you knew quickly that you were in trouble if you had Nebraska last week.
Oh, that was a
beatdown.
Oh, my gosh.
Just a vicious beatdown.
I had no opinion in that game. I thought Nebraska could show up, and I think the number was pretty much 7 in that game. I thought that was a good number. But, man, oh, man, yeah, Jeff, you're right. It did not take long to see who the right side was.
Yeah, it was a vicious beatdown, and credit to Cignetti. Just what a turnaround this quickly there in Bloomington. All right, now to a game in the Big 12 where I can't stand either of these teams. Texas Tech goes to Fort Worth to take on TCU. Texas Tech is still giving up points to Baylor last week. They're 5-2 on the year. Baylor, by the way, put 59 on Texas Tech last week. TCU 4-3. That played Utah last week, and it was every bit as bad as that 13-7 TCU final was, just for watchability wise. Nice win, if you nice underdog price if you had TCU last week in that game. But I don't know what to do with either of these teams. I think both of their defenses are terrible. I think their offenses are both erratic, which gives you a high total game and a 6 here in this one, 66.5 and a total TCU 6.
My number came to 8. Yeah. I just I've been very hard to be convinced on Texas Tech. But by the way, they've also done much better than I thought they would this year.
I agree.
So give them credit for that. But my numbers did come a little bit higher. But this is not a game that I would be looking to play. Certainly not.
I mean, they took the 7, right, all the way down, and actually earlier in the week they laid 6.5 back, and but now it's been all Texas Tech. I don't think there's a real surprise here. TCU's been a bit of a disappointment to some. Jeff, you mentioned the total 66.5, holding steady. Figures to be a pretty high scoring game, don't you think?
Knowing these two teams, if there's an over bet to be made, this game will land in the 30s. Just knowing how infuriating both of these teams have been, at least from my perspective.
More memories, Jeff?
You know what? I shouldn't really be that hard on Texas Tech because I have won on them a few times this year, but I just don't think they're that good. And TCU, that miracle run of 2 years ago, it's that's probably the peak of what that program's ever going to be. In all honesty. All right, for another thing in Texas, this game's a little bit better than that last one. LSU on the road at Texas A&M. Fellas, if the SEC title game was today, this would be the matchup right now in Atlanta.
Is that right?
Yep, this would be the matchup.
Wow.
In Atlanta. Obviously, one of these teams has to take a loss this week. For down to 1.5, so it's been a nice steady stream on LSU in this game. Credit to Mike Elko, because A&M comes out week 1 and they lose to Notre Dame, and it's like, oh, here we go again. It's going to be one of these
didn't look that good in losing
heavily
either,
talented teams that just doesn't mesh, and it's going to be a while for Elko to get the culture. And even though it hasn't been perfect by any stretch, A&M has rattled off 6 straight wins since opening night. They're 4-0 in SEC play, and prime time at Kyle Field is as hard as anywhere in the country to play. Obviously, the opponent here is used to a nice home field advantage at night as well at Tiger Stadium. This is a heck of a game, Chris. I'm very curious on where you think this goes from here with about 26 hours from kick right now.
Well, I made my numbers, and I try to just look at numbers, and I make it, and I write it down. Okay, LSU 2. Then I look at them, whoa, is that the right favorite? Hang on a second. And I went through my numbers again. I said, yeah, that's kind of what my numbers come up with. So it's really kind of getting a little tight here, even though I'm going to give out LSU later. But I like LSU in this game. I think they could really put a lot of points on the board. Their defense has been wanting for the last couple years. But I do like LSU in this game. And I think you mentioned Mike Elko. We've kind of talked about him on this show, saying we expected A&M to improve throughout the course of the year. That absolutely has happened. But I think right now LSU is just a little bit better team. Nussmeier, I think that could be the difference here. He played behind Jaden Daniels last year. Of course he did. Daniels was
best player in the country last year.
Arguably. Yeah, I mean, he won the Heisman. He was a number 2 overall choice. But I think Nussmeier is a legit quarterback.
I agree.
I think that might be the difference in this game. So I'm on LSU in this one.
We made this game of the year price pick, and we're headed.
You might close it.
We're headed
not bad.
Headed that way. So it's been again, early week action, favored A&M, but it's been ever since Tuesday, Chris, Tuesday evening, it's been a steady stream of LSU money. Great game. Probably the best, on paper, this is the best game. It's a great game.
This is a tremendous game.
Great game to book, great game to bet. Everybody's going to participate in this game. Total going back and forth between 53.5 and 54.5. So, but right now, definitely favoring LSU, but listen, A&M, the 12th man, and an evening game there, this place is going to be this is going to be a very good atmosphere.
All I'll say is if A&M wins this game, A&M's probably going to the SEC title game. They'll have to play Texas the final week of the season. That game is in College Station.
Oh, by the way, that's on our Jackpot parlay card.
That is on the Jackpot College rivalry card right in front of us. $5.
As many as you want.
As many cards as you want.
Don't be
25K
bashful.
guaranteed. Would imagine
College rivalry weekend. There's some great rivalries on there, and that's one of the best.
Now that it's back, I think it is the best.
You think so?
Yeah, that and the Iron Bowl.
You can make that argument. How about not this year, Michigan Ohio State.
Well, Michigan Ohio State's pretty good, but historically, yes, that's still the best.
But this year, I'll have to look at the rest of the menu. But that's a big
Chris,
one.
I just have to get my weekly mention of that. But no, look, winner of this game is going to have a really good path to get to the SEC title game. LSU hosts Alabama in 2 weeks, where if Alabama doesn't stop the bleeding, LSU, that might be a game LSU is supposed to win at this point.
Yeah, that's taken on a whole different view in the last couple weeks.
100%. All right, a few quick hitters here of more so good college football names for teams, more so than good games for these next three. Utah, who has just turned into a mess because of Cam Rising's injury. Zach Wilson's younger brother has not played well. Not surprisingly, true freshman. 4.5 against Houston, who is still the bottom feeder in the Big 12 in this one.
They'll bounce up at some point, but not this year.
37 on the this is just, Chris, this is just nothing about this game really screams great action here, even though they have bet Utah in this game.
Except I liked Utah. That's going to be one of my games.
I know.
Believe me, I'm betting more against Houston than on Utah.
And that's exactly what Chris, he hit it on the head. It's sometimes there's plays on, oftentimes there are plays against.
Yeah.
All right, next, Oklahoma, who is just a disaster by every mention. Poor Jackson Arnold had to bury his red shirt to come play last week. He's probably going to get the start this weekend for Oklahoma against Ole Miss, who. Look, if you're Ole Miss, you just got to put your head down and find a way to win the rest of your regular season games and hope you get some help for a potential college football playoff spot. Problem for Ole Miss is they get Georgia at home in a few weeks, which there'll be a dog in that one. Toggler, actually, and an interesting toggler at that. 20.5, 21, 20.5, 20 now, with Ole Miss at home with a total of 50 of this one. How many times has Oklahoma been almost a 3-touchdown dog in a conference game? How many times has that happened?
Who was the coach?
It had to have been pre-Bob Stoops, right?
Oh, yeah. Geez, I could see his face.
I'll look it up. I know
Cooper, maybe? It was that
John Cooper?
John Cooper, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
They had a bad year then. He lasted 1 year, I think, and then they made a move. But I don't think they've been that big a dog since then. They may not have been that big a dog even at that point. But I don't – never,
almost never, yeah.
Almost never. But Mississippi's got to learn to start playing some defense and closing the deal on some of these games. They've lost a couple of games I think that they should have won. Now, they should beat this team, but, it's college football Saturday. You never know what's going to happen.
Tell you what, Oklahoma's in desperation mode, right? I mean, when you think about it, let's face it. So, it's hard to look at this number and say, how could they be, a 3-touchdown underdog? But it's a matter of they've turned the ball over as well. Their offense is just not good, and their defense has been on the field for a good portion of games. So without an offense, especially in this day and age, and you're going up against a very creative offensive mind in Kiffin with Mississippi here, this one, I think, believe it or not, folks are going to tease Mississippi. We talk about college teasers, but they're going to. Let's face it. Look at the teaser card. That's coming in on it. So, but yeah, Mississippi's in the driver's seat. Oklahoma, they're in trouble to get to a bowl game.
Well, if you look at Oklahoma's remaining schedule, by the way, a little big in the chat asking if this is a play against Oklahoma, which to some maybe.
I can see that.
I can see it for sure. Yeah. Here's Oklahoma's remaining schedule. After this week, they play the powerful Maine Black Bears, Chris.
They might win that one.
They might win that one. That would get them to win number 5. But then their last 3 games, at Missouri, Alabama, at LSU.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Wow.
Good luck.
Jeez.
That's all I'll say.
They better run it up against Maine.
They're going to probably have to beat Missouri if they're going to want to go to if they're going to want to go to a bowl game this year. All right, the other Oklahoma team, which I'm sure if the Pokes were having a good year. The folks in Stillwater would really be having a fun time, but they're not. Oklahoma State's a 3-4 team as a 6.5 point underdog in this game against Baylor and Waco. Quarterback problems at Oklahoma State. Quite frankly, they should have won in Provo last week. Of course, BYU goes the length of the field in 37 seconds to torpedo some big money line prices that I had in game on that one. Not angry about that.
You sound bitter.
A little bit. I do like the Pokes in this game. I'm not buying Baylor. I think this Baylor team's pretty mediocre, and they just took advantage of a Texas Tech team that just kind of quit by the end of that game last week.
My numbers came to 3. I mean, I'm not real high on Oak State. I've watched what's happened over there for the last couple of weeks, really since the beginning of the season. But Baylor, 6.5? Yeah, it seems a little too steep for me. This is not one of my plays, but I do like that side, Jeff. My numbers, like I said, come to 3 Baylor.
They laid the 6 with the. I mean, Oak State they offensively. Again, more turnovers, and it's turned out to be. It's interesting. Last year they started off poorly and made a run. This year they started off strong and have just absolutely fallen apart. Baylor at home, playing. They play hard. They play consistent. Not all teams play hard. They don't. I mean, you just mentioned about how teams sometimes they just mail it in, but Baylor's been more consistent. That's speaks to why I think that it went from 6 to 6.5.
Yeah,
in the minds of the bettors.
I really don't like either of these.
I wouldn't play this.
I like your number better though at 3. I'll just say that, Chris.
Could be an in-game opportunity.
Sure, I'll find a way to lose that one too, probably.
Sorry.
All right, it's okay. Let's go to Alabama. The Tide. How about this? They haven't covered in 3 straight games. They've lost 2 out of the last 3 games. And now comes in Mizzou, who's coming off a dramatic come-from-behind win against Auburn. There is big question marks about the quarterback position for Mizzou. Brady Cook came back in that game last week, led a 2-score comeback. He has been listed as doubtful this week. We'll see. I wouldn't be shocked if we see him attempt to go before the game. We'll just see if he's able to.
He came back in the game last week.
Came back in the game. He went to the hospital mid-game last week, Vinny, and ended up coming back and playing in that game.
Pretty gutsy.
This is up to 17.5. All I'll say is if Brady Cook plays, even if he's extremely, extremely limited, it's still better than what Drew Pine gave them last week. So if Cook plays, I don't mind taking north of 17 in this game. I wouldn't go much further lower than that because at some point we anticipate Alabama's going to have a game where they just stomp someone. It just hasn't happened yet since the first half against Georgia, honestly.
Yeah, you're right. My numbers did come a little higher here, 19, but 17.5, 19, that's not anywhere near worthy of a play. But I did like the higher number from the opener, and I tried to stay ahead of it a little bit, but to no avail. I think I opened at 14.5. It was mostly 14 in the market. First, fortunately, we took some money on the dog. They love that extra half a point, but the public and even the wise guys have kind of overpowered them. So here we are now at 17.5.
Yeah, I mean, both professionals and casual bettors are on the same side in this one. I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination of the quarterback situation for Missouri and the fact that Alabama's. I think folks are saying at this point they have to turn it on and just start playing like they did in the first half of that Georgia game, and I think that's what the reasoning for people backing the Tide here.
I'm not surprised that the Tide have gotten bet in this game. I'm really not. Again, let's see if Brady Cook plays. If he does, 17.5 I think is solid. If not, I think Drew Pine just not a college quarterback at this point, especially not at a high level for Missouri. All right. Vanderbilt gets another crack at a top 10 team at home, Chris.
Why not?
Yeah, look, the Commodores are ranked. They're 25th. Yeah, there we go. There it is, Vinny. I know you love that. Texas is 18 on the road in this game.
By the way, they're not 25th in power ratings.
Oh, no. Look, that's the AP poll. I guess, again, polls don't make prices.
That's okay.
We need to make
their job. They have their job to do.
I agree.
I'll just say this with Vanderbilt. And I'm not saying Vanderbilt's going to pull off the second monster upset in a month. I'm not saying that. But with how everything that happened last week for Texas, basically everything in the worst possible scenario occurred for them. Quinn Ewers played awful against Georgia, got benched mid-game, and Arch Manning was awful against Georgia in that game. Their defense got carved while Georgia was attempting Georgia was really still attempting to play on offense, and that's with Carson Beck turning the ball over multiple times. Look, I think Vandy's capable of staying in this game. What's also possible is Texas wakes up and plays like they did the last 3 quarters of Oklahoma and just runs Vandy out of the building. This is, I think the number's right at 18. I think this is spot on where it should be right now, Chris.
It's funny the way Vandy hasn't just covered; they've covered by a
margin.
Yeah. I think that reign comes to an end this week.
Chris, they have 3 games they've won where they've been won outright when they've been a double-digit underdog this year. 3.
So Virginia Tech, Alabama,
and Kentucky, they were an underdog.
They were
a double-digit dog in that one as well. Yes, they've won 3 games as a double-digit underdog.
You do have to respect that. That they've just won they've outperformed what we've expected, the expectations. I kind of have a feeling that reign comes to an end this week.
Right.
I think Texas got to be breathing some fire. They played just awful last week against a really, really good team. Let's face it, Georgia hadn't been playing well all year, but they really did put it together in the game against Texas. So it was huge for Georgia, and they responded. So give Georgia a ton of credit. But I think we see just a big rebound out of Texas this week.
We might. I mean, the thing about Vandy, they're difficult. They're just they play extremely hard. They play disciplined. They were tough out at home. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this game, it opened 18, went to 19, and then came back down. Right. So
yep.
The thing about Vandy is, and I know, in spite of what I said in terms of the power rating, which is that they're near a 3 touchdown dog for a reason, and it is Texas coming off a loss, which they can't afford another one. But Vandy is a tough out. In basketball, right? There are teams that are scrappy, they're tough, they have this difficult style to play against. Vandy's kind of like that. That's their mantra.
It's Diego.
Right?
It's the Diego Pavia fashion. It's never pretty. But
it doesn't
effective.
have to be if it's if the results are there, right? And the results have been there.
Yeah.
So credit Vandy.
Vandy just has to win one more game to get bowl eligible, which is again for a team that was projected to do you have them as half a conference win, right? Going into the
I remember looking at it. I said, Vinny, show me a win on your schedule.
I know.
Yeah.
And
you're supposed to show me about 3 or 4 of them, but we couldn't find one.
I think he was one under.
Crazy what they've done, just in the best way possible for the Doors.
Good for them.
18-point dogs against Quinn Ewers and the Horns in this one in Nashville. All right, Sunflower Showdown in Manhattan, Kansas State. Kansas has not beaten Kansas State in nearly 16 years now, which is not overly surprising. It's been a while.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while since Kansas has beaten Kansas State. 9.5 in this game. Kansas finally snapped that losing streak last week. Kansas State, guys, is it fair to say that I think Kansas State has kind of just gotten lost in the shuffle here?
Yeah.
Because of that ridiculous blowout loss to BYU where basically everything possible went wrong for K-State in that game. Yeah. All they've done since then is they destroyed Oklahoma State. They won a tough road game at Colorado where I think the Buffs are way better than any of us thought going into the year. And then last week, you mentioned it, Vinny, tough place to get to in Morgantown, and they beat the snot out of West Virginia, beating them by 26.
Played a great game.
I know I will not have a happy wife since she's a Kansas graduate. I like the Cats in this game. I think Kansas State runs Kansas out of the building here at Snyder Stadium, Chris.
Yeah, I made it higher. I made it 15. That may be a shade high, but the money showed the other way. The money showed on the dog in this game. Yeah, I'm somewhat surprised, too, because I'm with you. I think K-State really has played well, except for a few aberrations along the way. And I'm sorry, that's just the way sports works. That's, you can't take those games and just, they mean something, but they can't mean everything. And I think we've, or the handicappers have put too much of that upon Kansas State because of that. But Kansas has been very disappointing this year, and I love Lance Leipold, and I hope he stays at Kansas and has a great career, but he's not getting it done this year for whatever reason. I think K-State the right side here.
They took the 10.5. They took the 10. We used 8, by the way, on the games of the year. A lot of times the folks always want to know, how the games of the year last summer compared to what's out there now. So, by the way, I'm just trying to figure out, are they playing this game in Central Park? Vinny, go
to your old house and go right across the bridge in Manhattan.
I'm just thinking I could get a hold of some of my cousins. We might be able to scalp some tickets. Maybe an opportunity here.
Well, what you call it? You're a known commodity in Manhattan, Kansas, though, Vinny.
I do speak to the School of Economics, and they do a great job. Great, Dan Keister, a professor of economics there, does a great job. Good class.
Quick hitter in this game that we'll go to next. Arkansas goes to Starkville to take on Mississippi State. And I'll say this with Mississippi State because they're 1-6. They're not good. They're a bad football team. Mm-hmm. But they at least have been
competitive.
They've covered the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Covered pretty easily against Texas as a huge underdog. Covered as easy as you can get against Georgia, losing by 10, and then last week cover against A&M, where I know you guys needed to knock A&M out last week. And,
that was huge.
And Mississippi State really was never in danger of not covering that game.
That was our biggest game of the day.
I love that. Love that Texas A&M and Mississippi State could be that.
Why wouldn't it be?
Hogs are 7.5 on the road at Starkville for this one. What has the market done here, guys?
It's been on the favorite. My number came to 6. I really give Mississippi State a lot of credit that they are probably the worst team in the SEC.
They are,
but they've played better the last couple weeks. So they're coming around a little bit. I think at +7 at home would be a take, but evidently the handicappers disagreed with me.
You can get 7.5 now at home. By the way, this total, Chris, look at the way this total's moved went all the way up to 58.5 off the opener of 57.5 down to 55.5. So it's kind of been a roller coaster with the total here, but I suspect it'll come back up, particularly with Arkansas involved. But yeah, I mean, this doesn't. You look at that and say Arkansas 7.5 on the road.
Yeah.
Right?
Crazy. I am. I would only take the dog in that spot. All right, let's go to the Big 12. Cincinnati at Colorado. Been all buffs this week in the market, guys. 6.5. There's even some 7 now. Mm-hmm. Look, I've detracted Cincinnati all year, but they've exceeded expectations. Travis Hunter seems to be fully healthy for this week, finally, for Colorado. Hey, if the Buffs went out, the Buffs have a realistic shot to get to Arlington, as crazy as that is now. 6.5, 57 here on this one.
My numbers come to 6, so no real play for me. But I do think right now, and Deion Sanders could be a lightning rod, both positively and negatively. And it's easy to kind of get distorted with all the pomp and circumstances surrounding him. But right now, you can't deny the guy's done a good job as coach. And he's got a couple of pretty good players. He's still weak in the trenches, but those skill position players can make a big difference here. And I really don't like Colorado in this spot, but like I said, my numbers came to 6, and I think Colorado, like Deion or not, he's done a pretty good job as coach here.
Starting to see 7s on this game, and not real surprising the way Colorado has been bet, and really the results. Although they had the Hail Mary a few weeks ago, but you have to have games like that during the course of the year. If the 7, I wouldn't be shocked if this game goes through 7. To be honest,
wouldn't be either.
I think it's just going to keep a steady stream of Colorado money, and this game is 7:15 Pacific our time.
One in both.
This is going to have a lot of carryover to it, and the carryover is going to be on the favorite.
Vinny, I agree with you. I think this is going to keep going up. Yeah. Colorado's a popular team, and they're playing well. A popular team that's playing well is going to get steamed in the market more times than not. All right, let's hit some Big Ten games on the way out before we bring Jimmy Vacarro in. I don't know if I checked the box on this one, but it's because this game has had no action whatsoever, and that's Penn State on the road at Wisconsin. Guys, you opened 6.5 Penn State. You opened 47.5. Guess what? You haven't moved either number all week.
You're right. We've taken a couple of big bets, and I remember one guy came in. He just bet us pretty big. I said, it's a solid 6.5. I'm not going to move it. So we've taken action, Jeff. Don't think that everybody's. It's not like nobody knows they're playing. But nonetheless, we have not had any significant movement whatsoever, even though the public is playing this game, and I think they'll play it a lot tomorrow. I'm just not sure which way. And I'm looking at my numbers, came to 6. So, I'm right there.
Right there. And you know what? Wisconsin's been playing better.
Much better the last few weeks. Yes.
Right. So, no real surprise here. They'll be sky high for this game against Penn State.
Since that bad second half in Los Angeles, where Wisconsin got outscored 28-0 en route to a 17-point loss, 38-21. Wisconsin beat Purdue 52-6. They beat Rutgers 42-7, and they beat Northwestern 23-3. They've just demolished their competition the last 3 weeks, and this is obviously a huge step up with Penn State. And for Penn State, look, you keep winning, you're going to college football playoff. It's just a matter of what seed you get. Ohio State, boy, talk about getting away from Nebraska here. Ohio State, 26-point favorites at the open. They did take it, at least, with the Huskers down to 25.5. I like this. A 25.5 with a 48.5 total on this one at the shoe here, Chris.
It's high. Might not be high enough. I made it a little bit higher. But, you always got to be careful laying these kind of numbers. You just never know. And, part of the handicap this year is teams like Ohio State, they don't really need to run up scores. No. They just need to win. And that might be a team that would take their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter, whereas Nebraska is definitely not going to be doing that. But, Nebraska got blasted last week against a team that's not as good as Ohio State. I don't know if they'll do it again. I kind of like the favorite a little bit here, but, again, if I was out there betting, this would be a stay away for me.
Got to see what Nebraska's response is after that beatdown last week, right? Because it's really the rest of their season could be impacted just from a psyche standpoint.
Boy, I feel just after what happened, like you said, guys, what happened to them last week, non-competitive. Raiola looked like a freshman the whole game last week against Indiana. Now your reward for getting blasted at Bloomington is to go to the shoe. That usually doesn't end well. Back-to-back weeks. All right, last one. To some that just poll watch as opposed to price watch, this price may surprise some people with Illinois at Oregon. But as I said earlier on Frank's show, I already laid the Ducks at 21.5, and that number's gone up since the show. 22 here, as high as 23 in the market now on this game. Look, Illinois has been relatively lucky, all things considered. Last week, Michigan just kept making mistakes, and Illinois took full advantage. The Ducks, we've talked about them. When Oregon has been at their best, they've been as good as anyone. They just haven't been consistent overly this year, and here they are, 7-0 on the year, number one in the AP poll. Big favorites in this one. This is a mid-afternoon game in Odson for this, Chris.
I do not have Oregon number one.
I know you don't. What do you have them number 3 or 4?
Oh, it might be less than that.
Or lower than that.
1, 2, 3. I got them 4.
Fourth. Okay.
I got them 4.
Texas, Ohio State, and Georgia ahead of them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Let me double check that.
Yes.
Ohio State, Texas, Georgia. Yeah.
I do too.
I made the number 24, Jeff. So I'm not crazy about your side, but I would certainly lean that way. But Oregon in Autzen,
tough.
There's a lot easier places to go play, and that's a team that could just run it up because I can't help it. But I made the number a little bit higher, but nothing significant.
Awful lot of travel for Illinois, right, in the last month. So you wonder, about that. But 3 touchdowns here. They're gonna support the Ducks here. There's gonna continue to go up.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, Jimmy Vacarro is going to hop on. We're going to talk some NFL, a classic World Series that's beginning tonight as well. We got plenty to get to right here on Football Frenzy, Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite.
Clear?
South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book Football Frenzy. Jeff Parles, Vinny Magliulo, Chris Andrews, and now joining us. Don't worry, Chris will be back in a moment, kids. But now joining us, our good friend, as always, Jimmy Vacarro with us.
You know what? You just can't stand it, could you?
Can't stand what?
You said, and Chris is gone. Jimmy's like,
oh, come on.
bring me back in.
Oh, come on.
Vincent, you heard the same thing I did. He was glad Chris.
Give him a hug. Give him a hug.
Come on.
There we go.
31 years old kid. You're learning a little bit every week.
I know I am. I have to.
How much better do you think you are in a year ago?
Oh, in every sense, much.
Yeah.
Much.
Right.
I'm much smarter because, look, I'm surrounded by three of the best to ever do it every Friday.
Every Friday.
You pick up pieces every single week that I don't know. And look, it's made me, I will tell you, Jimmy, it has definitely made me a better this year.
You're making more money?
I've been much better this year than I was last year, which is good.
Good.
Do you
are you gaining a responsibility of saying, no, 5 years ago, I would have bet that +7, even though it opened up 10, you would take the 7 instead of take a bad number, just have a bet.
So I can tell you this, Jimmy, and this is actually a good conversation too for people that are just getting into this or such. I can't remember the last time I took worse than 1.5 worst at most, which is good. Closing line value has become an important thing, learning through the years. I know it doesn't always win. No. I know that. I know we can't buy a sandwich sometimes with closing line value, but no, I definitely.
Can I give you a little advice?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do the right thing, because if you don't, you'll be broke by Thanksgiving.
Okay, that's a month from now.
when you're doing better, you're like, at least you're around till New Year's.
Yeah, no, that's the goal. The goal of it is to make it to the Super Bowl. That's always. Actually, let me rephrase that. The goal of it is to make it obviously the next football season.
There you go.
But
there you go.
For the short term thing, get to the end of March Madness with a profit. That's really how I look at it, because football. College football, NFL, and college basketball are the three sports I predominantly bet. Also, Ryan McCormick, as I texted you yesterday, if I say I'm going to make an NBA pre-flop bet, come across the desk and slap me in the face, because I deserve it at that point. I will have deserved it.
He'll get in line.
Yeah, please. So, anyone's welcome at that point.
Are you ready? I got a story that I want to hear an answer from my two friends over here.
Absolutely.
You've been in this racket basically your whole life, and you've seen things, good, bad, and indifferent. Then you've seen things that meant something, some things that didn't mean anything, and then some things you learned after you get your butt kicked. Now, we lost Fernando Valenzuela just a few days ago. Mm-hmm. Now, let me tell you what it was really like way back when it was just him. He was so dominant for about a 3-year period that the only way that we could make money is that somehow Fernando might lose. But he never lost.
Never gave up a run.
That's the other thing. Your thing was maybe we'll get to 1 or 2 and hold them. Then You didn't, because he obviously didn't know what the hell he was doing by meaning like get another run for this guy or let this team play. It's incredible. At that particular time, there was like a new way of doing business with those type of people. In our case, it was simply we took a while because we thought we were wise guys and just put up the right number. Well, after we learned if a game was minus 40 and he was a late game of the day, which was important also because he was the last one to get out or kick your butt even more. So a game figured to be minus 40. We opened it minus 55 because you needed something. At least you would lose less than you once did. So, and Chris, and the other thing is in YouTube, being late that night and then be like, it's the same thing. It's 2-1, 1-0 the whole way. And the game would be slow, but then we would have this guy coming in here. So I learned real quick. I know these two, Chris was in Reno and he was in Caesar's Palace, but like my thing was like, I don't care what the number looks like. I'm putting it up there just to get a bet back on the other side, just that you might do something. Now, the sad scenario was like he got injured in about his third or fourth year, and it's never went up.
Went to Baltimore, and who else?
Padres?
Padres, yeah.
So I'm just telling you, it's just like, if you don't learn this racket, you're not in it, or you won't last long if you think you want to be in it. So Vincenz.
Yeah, well, that was 1981 was his rookie year, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think he threw 8 shutouts that year, if I'm not mistaken.
8 in a row, I think.
Yeah.
It might have been.
Yeah.
No, it couldn't have been 8 in a row.
Close.
I think he threw 8 complete. I think that's sort of stat. 8 straight complete games to begin his career.
Right. But he also, how many shutouts did he have that year?
I'm going to look it up.
I mean, the thing, to Jimmy's point, first of all, it's a Dodger town, but the Dodgers weren't on TV then. It's hard to get them on TV now. So we had to sweat the ticker like bettors did, right? How many?
So Valenzuela, 8 starts to begin his career, 7 complete games, 5 shutouts, an ERA of .5.
There you go.
Not bad.
We hadn't seen that since like Bob Gibson, and Koufax and Drysdale, but you looked at it and you knew when he was on the hill that. That you need whoever the Dodgers were playing for a big number, because again, not just straight bets but carryover from parlays as well.
And something else that we learned real quick, like in today's market, you couldn't get, I can't lay that thing, it's 45, it was down to 30. Well, we still go back to the people who you call your general public. They didn't know what the hell the number was. It didn't matter. And every game at the end, the last game of the night, there was always how many parlays were live going to Valenzuela? And that made your day if you beat him or you didn't do him. Yeah. And every once in a while you get a call from upstairs and say, what the hell is going on? So what's going on? The guy he doesn't have a strike, let alone like a walk or whatever. I said, that's what we got to fight. It's a new way of doing business. We have to understand part of it also. So even at the beginning, if you thought it was 40, you opened at 55 because it's closing 60. That's the time. And Chris, you were right in the middle of that.
I was working Swing at the time, and I have one vivid memory. Kenny Epstein was kind of on Swing, and he came by. Kenny was, an old bookmaker, and he came by. He says, "What do we need in the Dodger game?" I says, "Well, Kenny, straight bets. We actually need the Dodgers for like 10,000 or something like that." So at the end of the night, he comes by, and I'm knocking out tickets. He looks at some of the winners. We didn't need the Dodgers. I says, Kenny, that's what I'm looking at every goddamn night. I don't know what to tell you. That's the way, when Valenzuela's pitching, we try to get loaded up on the other side, but it can't overcome the public.
And remember,
loved him.
Jaime Harim, that was like the broadcaster. He was brought on board to be an interpreter for Fernando. They just put him in the booth because there was a time, it was about 2 or 3 years in a row when he was really, really high voltage, that he averaged 20,000 more people would go to that game as opposed to any other game. So I'm just telling you, like
in the opposing ballpark as well, he was a draw. I remember him home. My friends would say, he went to Shea Stadium. They'd pack Shea Stadium when the Dodgers were in, and that was before the Mets were the mid '80s Mets. They were struggling.
Yeah, but that's why it would be different today. Even though obviously he'd be a big cog in the wheel here, but you could get rid of a lot, whatever you wanted to do. In those days, even the wise guys stopped playing because they kept saying, what the hell's the difference? I'm really the best number in the world. If
I'm looking at all this value on my ticket. And big deal.
By the way, that's the last year, 81, his rookie year. That's the last year the Yankees and the Dodgers played in the
That's
World
correct.
Series, right?
That's
and
correct.
the Dodgers wound up
6.
winning. In fact, Fernando, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the World Series. He pitched a game where I think he pitched a complete game.
Yeah.
He gave up a bunch of hits and walks.
Mm-hmm.
Threw about 150 pitches. Don't forget about a pitch count.
Well, Vinny, do you want the exact numbers on that game real quick?
Go right
Fernando Valenzuela, game 3
I'm pretty sure I'm close.
of this series. Dodgers win 5-4. Valenzuela, complete game, 9 hits, 7 walks, 6 strikeouts, 147 pitches.
There you go. Right?
Wow.
Dodgers win it, and
They beat Dave Righetti that day.
Yeah. So, and by the way, Dodgers Yankees tonight. Dodgers favored in the game. What we have? You guys have the graphic
Minus
on the,
20, minus 21,
you still
right?
have the let's
for
get
the game,
current,
yeah.
the current
They went lower,
price.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, Ryan
and
will
then
pull it up.
I
the
think for the series
of-
when I left, it was
$1.40.
again a dime. Minus 30 plus 20.
There we go. Minus 17 on the Dodgers, plus 107 on the Bombers,
There
and
you
it's
go.
still minus 130 on the Dodgers series price, plus 120 on the
So
Yankees.
great series, great memories too.
We'll do
Good
some
stories.
big business. We're doing big business.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a
for business.
dynamite World Series. Again, Vincenzo and I wish Orange and Blue was there, but it's the dynamite World
Next
Series.
year.
Dynamite World Series anyway you slice
See
it.
you later.
Thank you, Jimmy. Jimmy Vaccaro, everybody. Love it when Jimmy
I'm going to the bullpen.
go to the bullpen.
Stay loose, Chunks. They might need you tonight.
I
Oh,
think it was fun cashing those tickets at 11:30.
Or
No.
you think it was fun talking to Kenny Epstein
No, it
every
was
night when we
not
were getting
fun.
our
That
butts
was-
kicked?
We probably went 5 and 45. Really?
I believe it. I believe it for sure. All right, let's go to the NFL, fellas. Let's start with the Detroit Lions hosting the Tennessee Titans. Everyone now knows the trend, or the teams are 0-5 the following week after playing the Lions. Minnesota continued that with
last
yesterday.
night. Yeah.
Didn't cover, didn't win, obviously, in what was a nice win for the LA Rams. This is the biggest line of the week now, even though an unexpected line may end up north of that when it's all said and done. Lions, 11.5, Chris, 45 your total for this one. Motown Madness, just the Lions have just been so good this year so far.
Yeah, at what point do they take their foot off the gas pedal? I'm not sure.
I don't know if that's in Campbell's nature,
I don't
my
know
friend.
if that's in Campbell's nature either. And we talked about Jared Goff. I know the first couple weeks of the season, we thought, the guy's had his little brief run as a great quarterback with the Lions. But since then, I think you can make the case for him to be MVP. He's been terrific.
He's a short price. He's a favorite.
So we talked. Ryan and I talked about this last week. Actually, going into that Minnesota game, I took a piece of Goff at 18-1. Now he's down to about plus 650.
There you go.
Only Allen, Mahomes, and Jackson are shorter than Jared Goff in the MVP race at this point.
I can see all those, but I mean, I think Goff has as good a shot as anybody, and this team just keeps rolling. Tennessee, a lot of problems, there, but boy, I just hate that laying double digits in an NFL game. My numbers do come higher, but it's one of those diminishing returns deals.
There we go. Bingo.
Another bingo. But I don't know. I'd stay away from this game, but probably gun to my head, I'd probably take the Lions.
Got as high as 12. Midweek? And I can tell you this. Teasers in the NFL continue to be popular, and Lions are going to be heavily
Utilized.
Oh, there's no question about it. They'll be on a lot of teasers. So, by the way, you can tease up too, folks.
No, I can do that if you want to. By the way, Lions and the Packers play each other next week, so that is a dynamite game where it could be the case for both of these teams. Potential look at spot, not as much in the NFL. It's more college,
More college,
so than the NFL.
Nobody's off this week either.
Ryan,
no one is off.
Do you hate the Lions yet as much as you hate the Packers? No? Okay.
I think that's going to be a while.
That's deep. That's deep.
Deep cut there.
That's deep in his
No
heart.
hesitation.
Wisconsin's
Hell
more,
no.
Wisconsin's more offensive to people from Illinois, I think, than Michigan still as well. All right, let's go to another big favorite. This is a road one. Baltimore just coming off of the shellacking of Tampa Bay on Monday night, where again for the Bucs, we'll get to them later. It just the worst possible injury game they possibly could have drawn up for Tampa. Lamar Jackson threw 5 touchdowns, was absolutely brilliant in that game on Monday night, a 10-point win for Baltimore. Now they go to Cleveland. The Browns don't have Deshaun Watson playing quarterback anymore, which is the most important news in this game. Jameis Winston expected to start for Cleveland. Nick Chubb actually looked relatively healthy, all things considered, last week in his first game back after the significant knee injury a year ago. I took 9 with the Browns in this game, just on the sheer fact of maybe there's a sense of relief for that offense that they might actually be able to function now without a dead weight at quarterback. Again, I don't know how good Jameis is at this point, but can't be worse than what Deshaun Watson was throwing out there the first 7 weeks of the season, Chris.
He's been the worst quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
And making...
Well, he's clinched that distinction now with him not playing again this year.
I mean, I'm kind of with you. Again, my numbers come a little higher. I'm not sure how to evaluate Jameis Winston, but I would either take the Browns or pass here. I mean, it just, addition by subtraction, this is almost like the definition of it. You got rid of this albatross who's been an albatross on the whole franchise, not just the offense. But, boy, I mean, even last year you look and, they used different quarterbacks down the stretch, and each one seemed to have, at least that first game in, had to give them a little bounce in their step. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I kind of like the Browns. My numbers come higher, but I like the Browns in this game.
Want to see how the Browns respond, to his injury and how they rally, if they rally, right? I mean, the franchise is, the team is just in a funk. Now, was it just him? I don't think so. There's other issues going on there. Got as high as 10 earlier in midweek. So another game where the favorite is going to be heavily played on the money line and in teasers, but especially if you can get 10, you're getting a home dog in the NFL with double digits.
What did you have on a card in that game, Chris?
9.
9. Yeah, I don't think we're seeing 10 again. The rest of the market's at 8.5 right now. I don't know. I mean, the other thing, if you're at 8.5 with a book at 8.5, you could tease Baltimore to 2.5, and I don't think that's a bad idea. So, look, teasers galore, Vincenzo.
They've cashed a lot the last couple of weeks.
They've been cashing.
If those road favorites are going to keep covering, I mean,
we talked about it. Whether it's a first set, whatever the bet is, if you're cashing it, you're doing well.
Here's another road favorite that Frank Nicotero likes. So proceed with caution on the Green Bay Packers here. On the road at Jacksonville, 4 in this game, 49.5 your total. That's a weird spot for Green Bay to me. Mm-hmm. I just don't love it where you're coming off a dramatic win at home where I didn't think the Packers had their best game anyway, but they found a way to beat the Texans at the gun with the McManus field goal. And then you have the Lions on deck. Yeah, it's a weird spot here. And look, the Jags, if they lost to New England, they would have an interim head coach in this game.
Yeah, you're right.
100% would have been an interim coach. They really blast New England in that game in London last week. Now they're back stateside for the first time in 3 weeks. This is like a classic stay off for me where, if anything, I'd probably lean to the dog, but I don't have much confidence in the Jags against a good high-end team because they've looked awful against high-end teams so far this year.
Well, I definitely like the Jags in this game. I'm in a couple of contests, small contests. I played the Jags in both of them.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it's a bad spot for the Packers for a variety of reasons. And maybe, just maybe, the Jags are figuring some things out. I do like their coach, and I do like Lawrence to a point.
Sure.
But I think that this is a team that I think has the potential to put a little run together. And if they are going to do that, they need to do it right now. And, I took the Jags. Plus, I took 4. I think there were some 4.5s in the contest. But I'd even take the 4 if I had to.
Toggler, right? Laying 4, looks like taking 4.5. There'll be plenty of Packer backers in the stands, too. I mean, they do travel well. And
what makes you say that, Vinny?
Well, listen, buddy, all you have to do is they love cheese in Jacksonville. That's what I'm
is it going to be a bigger margin for road fans as it was when Pittsburgh came here a few weeks ago?
I don't think it'll be quite that much because
it's really hard to beat that.
Because Jacksonville, in the last couple of years, right? Or if you go back a few years when they got Lawrence, they started to get more of a response from their fans. But I could tell you it'll be there'll be plenty of Green Bay folks there. But yeah, this one's kind of gone back and forth.
Plus, who wants to go to Jacksonville? I'm sorry.
Well,
My apologies to all our numerous Jacksonville listeners.
Oh, man. This show's not going to be allowed back in Jacksonville.
Probably there's at least 2 or 3 of them. Yeah.
I'm laughing because I just didn't expect that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just did not expect that at all. All right, next game up. All right, so we have 2 rematches this week. This is the first of them on the order we have. Houston hosts Indianapolis. Texans are 5 with a total of 45.5. Jonathan Taylor is going to be back. Anthony Richardson played last week, even though it wasn't the prettiest. Indianapolis found a way to beat Miami by 6 a week ago. The first matchup between these two teams was week 1. Houston won 29-27. And if you guys remember, Joe Mixon carried the ball 30 times in that game for $159. Indy sitting at 4-3, actually in playoff position at the moment. Again, it's weird with these early season rematches. I don't really love when 2 teams see each other in the first 7 weeks of the season. I think it's too soon. Or 8 weeks now, too soon to see these rematches. But I'm just interested to see how Houston, more so than Indy, handles this, because this will also be the first time that Anthony Richardson has seen a team for a second time in the same season. Of course, he only played 3 games a year ago.
Numbers come a little higher, but I kind of like the dog.
Indy covered week 1.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I'm waiting for another shoe to drop on Houston. I really thought after last year, like they were a quick ascension up to one of the best teams in the league. And ordinarily in the NFL, it's not how that happens. You just take a couple steps forward, take a step back, forward, back. And I think Houston, been waiting for them to take that step back. Did they take a step back last week? A little bit. It's not like they got blasted or anything like that. But I think right now, we're expecting a little bit too much out of them. And numbers 5, I mean, listen, 5, how many games come down to nip and tuck in the fourth quarter? And I think this is going to be one of those. So I sort of like the dog. I'm not sure I'd go out and play it, but I sort of like the dog here.
Yeah, the dog's getting support. Taylor looks like he's going to play. Nico Collins, I think, is still out this week for the Texans.
Still on IR, yep. He's still not ready.
So, but, 2 teams that know each other real well. I'm not shocked that there's money coming in on the dog here. You could say, well, 5's a dead number. There'll be support for the Texans because there is support for them every week. Question is, what's going to be the threshold for it. But I think overall, even though the money's come in on the Colts right now, I think we might need the Colts by the time we get to Sunday.
I think we will. Yeah.
All right. Look, I'm just curious to see how high this gets. Obviously, if we somehow touch 6, probably don't blink. But it would be
a chance.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance that this gets to 6 by the time we kick off on Sunday.
By the
Sunday
way,
morning.
we should just mention this too, just as an aside. Because it's such a passing league, right? And quarterbacks and receivers get so much of the attention. But when you look at Mixon, right? When you look at, let's take 4 running backs that have changed teams from a year ago. You look at Mixon, you look at Josh Jacobs, you look at Derrick Henry, and you look at Barkley. Every one of their teams are now in a better position than their former teams. So you can't discount, right, what the running back means in this day and age. It was something what Jacob said when he was here, even when he was in a contract dispute a couple of years ago, and he played with the Raiders a year ago. So you can't just discount, running backs anymore, right?
100%. And look, we talked about this after the first month, where the average rushes per game and the rushing yards per game were the highest they've been since the late 80s. For the first month of the season. You also mentioned those 3 guys, the Raiders, the Titans, and the Giants are 3 of the 7 worst teams in the NFL. The Bengals, who knows? We'll get to them later. But
by the way, Eckler has helped the Washington Commanders, right?
Eckler's been a great number 2 piece in Washington.
He's helped them.
Granted, when Dobbins has been healthy this year, Dobbins has played well.
And and the Chargers are still in the mix even after that tough
There's
loss.
nothing wrong with having 2 good running backs.
Well, look at Detroit.
Look at the Lions, who are arguably 2 of the 12 best running backs in the NFL, for sure. All right, let's this is something I didn't expect to say this year, honestly. Tua Tagovailoa is back. He's playing.
Yeah.
He played. He missed the minimum 4 games of what he needed to miss when going IR designated to return. And he's back this week for the Miami Dolphins, who needed more than ever because that Miami offense without him was an embarrassment.
Yep.
They made Tyreek Hill into basically a glorified track star because they couldn't get him the ball at all because of how bad their quarterback play was. They're 4 at home against Arizona. No one really watched it because it was a stream-only game. You only watched it if you're here at the South Point, really. But the Cardinals got a really nice win on Monday night. I know the Chargers really messed around and didn't score a touchdown, but you know what? A nice win for Arizona. Now they go cross-country again, all the hoopla with Tua back. It's 4, Chris, with a total of 46 here in this game.
I'm going to ask my friend Vinny here. What kind of an adjustment did you make from Tua being out to Tua being in?
So when he went out, you mean? It was at least a 4
or now
point.
coming back. I mean, what kind of number are you looking at?
It's not as great as when he went out.
Okay.
So I'd say when he went out, it was at least a 4 point adjustment. I think coming back, it's probably about 2. Just to see what.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay, if it's a 2 point adjustment, this number's way too high.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. I think the number's way too high. And I adjusted it more than Vinny did, to be honest with you. I still think it's way too high. My numbers come to 2 on the Dolphins, and now you're talking about 4.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, like I say, how many of these games in the NFL come down to the fourth quarter? A lot of them. Taking 4 in a game like this, I think the Dolphins should be a very slight favorite, but 4 in the NFL is a pretty damn big favorite. Look at the money line, 2-1.
It's probably going to go higher.
Yeah, it might go higher. I think this number has really gotten out of hand. I've played the Cardinals in a couple of my contests, and matter of fact, Jeff, add them to my list. I'm going to add Cardinals plus the 4.
Got you.
This number. We were looking at what did I open this? I think did I open 3?
3.5.
I opened 3.5.
They took the 3.5 again early on
went
Sunday.
to 3 and then back up. This number's too high. This number is just too high. And, I'm not the biggest Cardinal guy because I never really liked Murray all that much. But they can cover this number, I'll tell you.
I wouldn't be shocked if Arizona wins this game outright.
Right, yeah.
In the quarter and the game and a half that Tua played this year, did you really even like how he looked through the 6 quarters?
Yeah, now he's been off for a month and he's coming back. I'm telling you, they've adjusted this way too much.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I don't quite get why this is so high, which probably that means Miami wins by 3 touchdowns because the Cardinals have been one of these teams that have been all over the map so far this year.
By the way, for some of the folks out there probably in the chat, people are probably wondering, wait a second, if you took 4 points off but you only put 2 back, he's had a concussion and he's coming back. He's been out for a month. It doesn't mean automatically that it's look at Russell Wilson, his first half last week.
He's not good until the third quarter last week.
So for folks listening out there, that the reason is let's see what he does. Now, let's say he comes in and he looks great. Well, then we'll continue to adjust. But you can't automatically, off of a month, off a concussion, that's been a problem for him, and he's one hit away from who knows what again, right? I mean, maybe he takes another bad hit. You can't just automatically say go back to where he was 5 weeks ago. So that's the explanation.
To the next game on the NFL card, it will go to the NFC South. The Atlanta Falcons will go to Tampa. Second time these two teams have played in the last few weeks. Actually, there's 3 games of rematches this week, I should say, because the next one, or 2 from now, is a rematch as well. No Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin for Tampa. Bucky Irving looked like he wasn't going to play, but now he's trending the right direction, apparently, for the Bucs. That was as bad of an injury game as you could have possibly put together without the quarterback getting hurt for the Bucs. You lose your 2 best wide receivers. Godwin you lose when the game was already over. Just stupid to have him out there, especially when you lose Evans early in that game. Falcons played a terrible game last week. They were non-competitive at home against the Seahawks. Of course, the first meeting with this one between these two teams was arguably the best game in the NFL season so far this year on that Thursday night where Atlanta won 36-30 and Cousins threw for over 500 yards in that game. I don't know what the heck to do with this game, guys. I think that 2.5 Atlanta on the road with the injuries on the Tampa side makes a bunch of sense, though.
I think with the adjustment of losing two such key players, in this day and age in the NFL, that wide receiver has become like really what the running back was back in the 80s and 90s. It's very hard to win without him. And now you're losing two, 1A and 1B as far as starters go. And both guys were really instrumental in this offense. I'd probably, this would definitely be a pass for me if I was out there playing. But run the gun to my head, I'd probably take the Bucs just for a shot, just home dog. Although home dogs haven't been all that great, but I'd probably do it because I just don't like Atlanta that much that they deserve to be a big. Well, it's not big. They'll be a road favorite in division. So that's all, but not anything serious.
A lot of familiarity. I mean, hard to believe. Bucs lost that. He scored 30 points and lost that game.
I mean, they needed about 15 things to go wrong in the last 5 minutes, and they all did.
And so, Falcons here, the healthier team. You've just got to see what the response is with Tampa. Plus, the Falcons, figure to press defensively by both these teams, right? I mean, the key is going to be who can disrupt the quarterback. Better, and obviously with the Bucs injuries in the receiver core, I don't know. It's this number will probably hit 3.
I'm looking for reasons to bet Tampa, but without those two guys, it's very hard to bet them, even as a dog at home. And you mentioned it. Road short favorites have been obscenely good the last month, so this is a stay off for me. All right, let's go to a game that got flexed to the later afternoon slot. As we all expected, the Bears and the Commanders is a premium game, as we all expected. Chicago's 3 on the road in this game, 43.5, and it's all squarely on the status of Jaden Daniels, who suffered the rib injury early last week. Didn't matter because Carolina was a disaster in that game against Marcus Mariota and the Commanders. Jaden Daniels was limited in practice today. Didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday. Listed as questionable. Market's not buying that he's playing just yet, though, Chris.
No. The price is kind of telling you he's not. If he is playing, he's anywhere near 100%. And I got to tell you, I don't think, listen, a coach could prove me wrong, whatever. But when you have a young quarterback and a very valuable commodity, I don't think you put that kid back on the field unless he is close to 100%. You don't want to have.
I agree with you.
You don't want to have an RG3 situation or even an Andrew Luck situation where these guys force themselves back into the lineup before they were completely healthy. And here's 2 potential Hall of Famers that we never got to see their careers. I hope they learn a lesson. I hope they don't play Daniels unless he is 100. And nobody's going to be 100% at this point in the year, but unless he's near full effectiveness, let's say. But, I kind of lean towards the Bears, but if I find out Daniels is playing, whole different ballgame. Who's the backup, by the way, for Washington?
Marcus
Mariota.
Not bad.
Okay.
He's okay.
League average.
He played well last week, He's okay.
Nah, they didn't have to do it. Didn't have to do much.
Didn't have to do much, But he is a veteran. What's it, about 8-9 year veteran, something like that.
Him and Jameis, same.
Yeah, him
same
and
draft,
Jameis.
of course.
Yeah.
Mariota, more than capable, and being at home. I think there's juice back in the franchise, right? And better home field than they've had in the last few years. And they're a better defense and a better offense. It's not just Daniels that's made them better. I mean, he's a big part of it. Don't get me wrong. 3 is a lot in this spot. Asking for another rookie quarterback, and I know that the Bears have done a much better job in the last few games. But I suspect that I think there's going to be money for Washington here, whether Daniels plays or not. We'll see a response here.
Secondary injuries for Chicago, Brisker and Kyler Gordon, both out as well. But I don't know. I think I kind of like taking the points with Washington. And if Daniels doesn't play, all right, I don't have a side I love, but take some points at home. And if Daniels plays, this line is going to be on the move quickly, even if he's not at 100%. So
he'll come back down, sure.
Yeah, I at 3, I think it's a take. And look, if Chicago goes on the road, I don't care if Daniels doesn't play. If Chicago goes on the road and beats a team that is looked very capable this year and has gotten much better defensively. That's a huge step for the Chicago franchise for where they've been. And the potential to be 5-2 in a division that is loaded up like the NFC North, you're giving yourself a shot to realistically compete. By the way, Bears' schedule, if they find a way to win this week, pretty soft the next 2 weeks. Arizona on the road and then New England at home. 2 games, they're probably going to be smallest of favorites in Arizona. They'll be they'll be more than a touchdown against New England.
Yes. Steelers said the same thing last year and lost both those
trust
games.
me, I know, Chris. Well, we'll get
to
the
NFL, buddy.
The
boy,
NFL, my friend.
You.
Yep, 100%. All right, well, let's go to this train wreck of a football game that's up next. The 2-5 New York Jets.
Why did they not flex this game?
It's not in prime time?
1-6 New England
Shocking.
Patriots. Ryan, go ahead. You know what to do if you can find it. But regardless, the Jets are look, this is a testament to New England more so than anything, that the Jets are 7 on the road in this game. Losers. There we go. There we go. Thank you. Perfect. Eric Collins again. We're going to use that anytime the Jets are mentioned for the time being. Right on top again. Very good. Chris, this is an indictment of New England, though. It just shows how bad the Patriots are, that a team that's 2-5, losers of 4 in a row, locker room in disarray, and there's still New England's still an underdog to that team by a touchdown at home.
I don't know.
Exactly. That's how I feel, too.
I feel like taking the dog, but like I said, I'm looking at that home dog thing. It ain't been so good lately, Jeffrey.
No, it is not.
But you lay 7 on the road with the Jets?
I can't.
Yeah, I don't think I can either.
Can't.
I'm in one contest where you got to pick every game. And I just played New England for the hell of it. I couldn't stand to watch not that I have much money on it. It's just a couple $100. I wouldn't want to see my couple $100 go down the drain laying points on the Jets on the road. I just couldn't stand myself doing it.
No Vera Tucker for New York. No, Alan Lazard's doubtful with a chest injury. Their secondary's a mess also with the safeties out, even though they do get their corners back. Michael Carter and DJ Reed both expected to be back.
Well, both teams called out, right? And they should have been. I mean, let's face it.
This is a scenario, too, for New England, at least for New England. Like, first-time head coach, rookie quarterback. You knew this was going to be a mess for most of this year, and you're not building for this year. For the Jets, the chips are all in the middle of the table.
What is there, a new toy back there?
All the chips in the middle of the all the chips are in the middle of the table now for New York, and you got pocket queens against pocket aces right now going to the turn. I mean, that's basically where you're at if you're New York going into the remainder part of the season. You're probably more realistically have 4-3 offsuit against those aces right now, heading to the turn right now with the Jets. All right, let's go. There we go. Perfect. We don't have to mention them anymore. Let's go to Buffalo and Seattle next. Good game in the Pacific Northwest. Bills 3 on the road. With Seattle, Chris, it feels like every time I feel like I'm about to believe in them. Big win last week. Dominant for the most part against Atlanta. DK Metcalf's now hurt. Like, you just can't quite get to the next step with this Seahawks team. 3-0 start, awesome. They lose 3 straight against better competition. This is as tough of a game as there is on the card this week because, as you've said, home dogs have been awful this year. I don't know. This is a tough road trip for Buffalo, though, going all the way across the country to the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, they're not exactly flying Southwest in middle seats, I mean, I think they fly a little better than that.
A little slightly, Chris.
Yeah. I kind of like the Bills in this spot. I think the number's about right. I don't think you couldn't go any lower. You couldn't go to 2.5. I don't think. But I do think the Seahawks are a team worth watching. Keep an eye on them. I think that this is a team that could turn it around, make a fairly decent run at the playoffs, maybe even win a playoff game or two. But keep my eye on the Seahawks. I don't think this is a particularly good spot for them, though, right now. And I think I would take the Bills minus the 3. It looks like a little bit of a cheap number, a little bit.
Yeah, I think there'll be support for both of these teams, but more so on the Bills. Just probably more depth too. And again, where's the big advantage? The key position at quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
So there'll be more support for the Bills. By the way, this game, they're betting this game under. So we went to 46 as we sit here. So
not again, hard game for me to cap here. If you made me play it, I'd lay it with Buffalo. If you made me play it, but not much confidence on that. All right, let's go to the Saints and the Chargers. So Taysom Hill and Chris Olave are expected to be back. Derek Carr is not expected to be back for New Orleans. The Chargers, who look, if you watch the Chargers last week, it is a mash unit in that pass catching room right now. Disley and McConkey are basically your two best options. Look like Johnston's not going to play again. McConkey and Disley didn't even participate in practice today, so who knows on them? And it all comes to Chargers 7. And it comes to also, which surprises me a little bit, the fact that this game has actually gotten bet to the over. It finally came back down a little bit, but I don't know how we're getting into the low 40s in this game with the way that the Chargers have no one to throw to, and the Saints have no one throwing the football, basically, at this point.
Big number.
Huge number.
Big number here. Chargers looking to rebound. Saints trying to get healthy and figure some things out. But I'll tell you what, we're going to need the Saints in this game. Don't you think, Chris?
Yeah. I keep thinking back. We had Chad Millman. Was he on your show?
He was with Alex and Kenny one day.
He was with Alex and Kenny. Yeah. Chad, he said a lot of bad things about the Saints. And first 2 weeks of the season, I thought Chad was out of his mind. Looked like he was nuts. Now it's kind of coming to fruition. Bad coach, not a great quarterback, and the quarterback isn't even in this week. But I think there's a lot of trouble in that team. I kind of like the Chargers. Laying 7. Oh my God.
A lot of points.
The total's 40.5. That right there tells you points are going to be at a premium. But I just could not have any part of the Saints at this point in time until I see a little something. Give me the Chargers, but very reluctantly.
Let's go to a game that actually got moved up to an earlier time, but is down the board on the rotation numbers. 283, 284. Philadelphia at Cincinnati. Bengals 2.5-point favorites in this game. Both teams won last week against inferior competition. Bengals were kind of lucky that they were playing a bad team. I think sleptwalked through that first half. The only points for Cincinnati in that first half were the opening kickoff touchdown return by Charlie Jones. That was it. Bengals then woke up, scored 14 in the fourth quarter, ended up winning by a touchdown, 21-14 over the Browns. The Giants could have played 16 quarters against the Eagles and not scored 28 points. That's how bad New York's offense was in that game. Eagles win 28-3. Really didn't have to exert much effort in that. This is two teams that you're kind of getting a mixed bag with. Two teams that have coaches I don't like. Two teams that have had erratic defensive performances this year. Two teams that the quarterback, Burrow's been mostly great this year, even though the defense hasn't helped him. And Hurts has been much better the last 2 weeks after the bye, after a very shaky start to the season.
I think this is a terrific game. We talked about some of the games that weren't very good.
Yeah.
And scratching your head who you play. I got to tell you, I'd like to bet on both these teams right now. I think they're both about ready to peak. Now, where they go from here, God only knows. It's like looking at a chart on, a graphic. I think right now both teams kind of trending up. Be interesting to see where they are headed. I kind of like the Bengals a little bit in this spot. I think it's, the home field has to mean a little something. I think they are maybe a little bit better than the Eagles at this point in time. But watch out for both these teams. I think both these teams could have the potential to make a run over the next few weeks or a month.
What's the status? Higgins
is questionable,
right? Hamstring.
That's the big. Dallas Goedert's the biggest name officially out of this game, but Higgins is questionable right now.
So if you look at, everybody's been waiting for the Bengals to make their move, right? In the last 3 weeks, who have they played? Right, the Giants, Carolina, and
Cleveland.
Those are three teams struggling.
Yeah, those are the 3 wins,
and two of those, and those are 3 wins.
Yeah.
Now the Eagles, I think, played two of those teams already, also, and
they beat Cleveland and the Giants back to back.
you're really looking here and saying, okay, who's getting it together right at the right time. I think it's going to be a toggler. I think it's going to be a two-way betting game. Shout out to Ann. I think they're going to continue to lay 2.5 and take 3 in this game. We're going to go back and forth, and we're going to definitely need the game to not fall Bengals 3. But it'll be a very strongly bet game.
I think I like Philly in this game. I like their defense more than I like Cincinnati's defense.
And you like Barkley.
Barkley's been a great addition.
You know what? I'll say this even more so than Saquon. AJ Brown's healthy. I think that's the bigger
By the way,
thing.
brothers are going against each other in this game, right?
Yeah,
Right?
They are. I would lean Philly, but I'm not overly strong on that one. All right, let's go to the game just down the road from us. Vegas hosting the Chiefs. Of course, the last time the Chiefs lost was actually to this Raider team on Christmas Day last year. Raiders 9-point dogs at home in this one. Was as high as 10. Now 41.5 on that total. Patrick Mahomes has not thrown a touchdown pass in the month of October. Has not mattered. Chiefs defense has been arguably the best unit in football so far this year. I don't know. I mean, the Raiders talk a lot of trash during the offseason about this matchup, and normally when you do that with Kansas City, it doesn't end well the next time you see them. I don't love laying this amount of points on the road, but it would only be the favorite for me in this game. Raiders did get good injury news today. Max Crosby, who looked to be questionable, is fine, not even listed on the injury report anymore. And it looks like they're going to get back Jacoby Myers, which he missed a week ago for the Raiders. Juju Smith-Schuster's the biggest name out for Kansas City this week.
Crosby torments Mahomes. I mean, he really does. They showed some films of that last year. And I know they shook hands and Mahomes kind of smiled a little bit after the game, but he did not enjoy playing against him. But I'm kind of with you. I like the Raiders here. I just think, I like Kansas City here. I think the Raiders just have lost a little bit too much. I don't know. They got quarterback problems. I think they got coaching problems. I think they got a lot of problems. But that being said, I mean, Mahomes has not been great. And he's still, third or so in the MVP race?
Second favorite in the MVP, which is he's 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Yeah. Figure that one out.
Somebody sent me a clip of like a fake Chris Collinsworth calling a game with Mahomes. It's pretty funny and a little too close to the truth, I would say. But he's not played well. They're really a defensive team last year, too. But he is Brady-like in a lot of ways where he wins and produces when he has to, when it's all on the line. That doesn't necessarily mean in a game like this, but I do kind of like the Chiefs. I wouldn't, if I was out there betting, I wouldn't lay close to double digits on the road. I just wouldn't do it. But I think that's probably the right side.
Plenty of Chiefs fans in the crowd. They had DeAndre Hopkins too.
Yep,
which definitely helps Kansas City.
Yeah.
Raiders, look, again, here's another matchup of which quarterbacks, when you're talking about the Raiders. It's Mahomes, Chrissy hit on a key point. His maturation just continues every year to get better and better and finding ways to win. I'm not saying they're going to cover this number. It's a big number. In an NFL game, and Chiefs are going to be again. Here's another tease. You could look at the board and you see the 3 big teaser again. The 3 big favorites are going to get teased by the general public, and can you blame them? But you know what? Raiders typically played them tougher too. I think in Kansas City, right? I mean that loss you were talking about.
The last 2 times Kansas City has lost to the Raiders, both those games were at Arrowhead.
Arrowhead, yeah. So it's a situation where. The Chiefs are not uncomfortable here.
No reason to be.
In fact, nobody's
really
uncomfortable
here right now.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to the second biggest favorite on the board because we expected this the whole season when this game came out. That the Denver Broncos are 11-point favorites against the Carolina Panthers this week. Now, I think the bigger thing is that Denver's 11 against anyone. But here's the reason for that, fellas. Carolina has 24 players on the injury report this week. 24. Andy Dalton is out. It's going to be Bryce Young. Dalton injured his thumb in a car accident earlier this week. Adam Thielen is out. Deontay Johnson is out. There are a lot of other players that are questionable. Josie Jewell, the former Bronco, the linebacker, is also going to be out as well for Carolina. Look, it's a lot of points in an NFL game to be passing up. And I see 11 with a team that's quarterbacked by Bo Nix, and I'm like, how could I not take the points? But I just look at this injury report for Carolina. They already stink to begin with. Now they're going to be without 4 of their 9 best players on top of it. This turns into a pass because of that, Chris.
Well, I like the Broncos minus the 11. I tell you, if you look at the Broncos, and you have the schedule probably right in front of you, they can't beat a good team.
No.
But they can destroy bad teams. And I think that's exactly what we're looking here. I don't know about Bo Nix. I mean, we got a long way to go to find out if he's any good or not. But I do know Peyton is a pretty good coach. And if he has, I think you got to figure he has the X and O's advantage in this game. Besides having the players, I think this is one of those games where he demolishes a very, very poor team with an excessive amount of injuries. I mean, to me, you have to bet the Broncos here. I mean, 11's getting up there pretty good. Total's only 41. But really, the Panthers, can they score 10 points in this game? Can they score 13 or 14?
They're probably not, because they're going up against, so far, the 3rd best pass defense in the NFL so far this year in the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I really think, laying 11 points with a very mediocre team in the Broncos. But I think that this is the kind of team that they can't just handle, but they'll demolish. And I think that's exactly what we're looking at here.
You're looking at 2 different directions. So the look ahead, when you look at the beginning of the season, if you look at what power ratings were going into the season, the number on this game was like 3.
If that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and now you have a game that's moved almost 4 points this week.
Yeah.
We opened this like 8, right?
7.5.
7.5.
So here you have a Broncos defense which is playing great, going against a team that's depleted. Again, another team that's going to get support, and no surprise, week in and week out, we're going to need the Panthers. So this one, why don't you just come to the window? We'll just give you the money right now.
Look,
see Vinny. Go see Vinny.
Just come right. I'll be right. Window 13. Oh wait, we only have 12 windows.
It's also Bryce Young on the road. Also, not a good
against a very good defense.
They are a good defense.
Look, that was one thing I got wrong going into the season with Denver. I thought their defense was going to be pretty average because they lost a lot of pieces up front. They have the best corner in the NFL in Surtain II. There's no arguing that. But
Excellent.
Their pass rush, their front 7 has been excellent so far this year. And look, that AFC is a mess after the top 5. I'll throw Pittsburgh in there. They're going to be 2 playoff teams that we look at the way that it's gone and like, how did these teams make the playoffs? And Denver has as good of a case as anyone right now to sneak in the back door and get one of those last.
There's always somebody that you look about around midseason, very mediocre team, puts together a few wins and sneaks into the playoff. And I'm with you. That could be the Denver Broncos.
Well, look, both of those teams out west, the Chargers too. You have 2 high-end coaches out there with Harbaugh and Peyton. It's possible, especially since a lot of those teams that are chasing right now don't like Zach Taylor, don't like whatever the coaching staff for New York is right now. I'm losing faith in Mike McDaniel at this point in Miami. And
I see some Staley qualities.
And Indianapolis, as much as I love Steichen, Anthony Richardson's got to complete a few more than 5 forward passes in a game.
And there's a lot I like about Richardson, but you still look. He has no experience, even from his college days. It was just not enough.
Yeah, they're going to be 2 very weird playoff teams in the AFC. I feel pretty confident on that at this point. All right, the primetime games this week, guys. The Cowboys and the 49ers, it's down to 4. The Niners' injury woes are just a disaster at this point. McCaffrey, who knows when we'll see him. Ayuk season is over. Both his ACL and MCL torn in that injury last week. Deebo Samuel's questionable with that upper respiratory illness now. Nick Bosa's finally off the injury report, which is good news for them. Juwan Johnson's out. George Kittle's not 100%. He's questionable. So just all these ridiculous injuries on that side. By the way, I don't know if you saw this out of Dallas this week, but Brandon Aubrey hasn't been in practice all week because he's on jury duty, Chris.
Oh, I did see that.
Yes. Cowboys tried to get him out, and Aubrey said, no, I'm going to do my duty, which a bigger man than I am, I can tell you that. But
what if they weren't going? What if they weren't going to San Francisco?
Yeah, I mean,
what if they were playing Carolina?
On the Dallas side, we thought Micah Parsons would be ready. He's not.
He hasn't practiced.
He's already ruled out. Deron Bland also out in this game again for Dallas. Injuries are gigantic in this game. But by the way, real quick, Mike McCarthy's only lost 3 times in his career off the bye.
I've heard
He's
that.
He's been great. Everyone talks about Andy Reid, but McCarthy's been almost as good at him off the bye, and Dallas is off the bye here as a 4-point dog on Sunday night.
This just looks like a bad matchup for Dallas in the trenches to me. And, Shanahan, I mean, okay, he's losing McCaffrey. He still finds ways to run the ball.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
His dad did the same thing.
Yeah.
They had a different 1,000-yard rusher every year.
Mike
Denver.
Anderson, 1,000 yards.
Who?
Yeah, exactly.
But obviously he learned off his daddy. But I think they run the ball down Dallas's throat. I do have to respect the McCarthy thing. I heard that, and that is impressive. So, I mean, would I go all in on this one, tap out? No. But I do like the Niners in this game. I think they can cover this 4 just on the strength of their running game.
Took the 4.5 with the Cowboys. Not a real surprise there, but I think there'll be Niner money, Niner support, and Niner carryover. But again, overall, this, depending on the rest of the score, how the days go, we'll be in a spot where neither team's going to be good for the house.
Yeah,
on this the kind of game. 2 public teams too, right? Even with
that's
the Cowboys,
why it's been the last couple of weeks. How bad is it going to be?
Yeah, that's what's going to impact this game. But a good betting game, with 2 public teams, even with the injuries, everybody's going to get involved with this game.
San Francisco's owned them too over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Just completely owned them. But got to have some players out there, right? I mean, it's only so much like asking Ricky Pearsall. Obviously, great story to see him back on the field after getting shot through the chest back in August. But a lot to ask of him and Bell and all these guys who just aren't used to being out there with all these injuries on the San Francisco side. All right, Monday Night Football. We got a bunch of fun ones here in this one. The Giants and the Steelers 6-point favorites. Mike Tomlin is 20-3 on Monday night. Mike Tomlin also has 18 career losses as a 6-point favorite or more. So you got to, again, Tomlin's record is still good. It's 58-18 as a 6-point or more favorite, but 18 losses, and that percentage, 58 out of 76 is a lot lower than you usually are as a 6-point favorite. Vinny, I'll go to you first on this before we get our resident Steeler fan in between us. But you mentioned this with us on Monday. Daniel Jones and the New York Football Giants are significantly better away from MetLife Stadium at this rate.
His quarterback rating is at least 40 points higher on the road. Think about that.
That's not possible.
I mean, I had to triple check that. But they are better. They are better away from MetLife. Steelers now with their second game with Wilson. Steelers are going to get, even though the money's come in on the Giants here, there's going to be plenty of Steelers support in this game. And again, both quarterbacks for the Steelers are much more effective than Jones, and the Steeler defense is as good as it gets. So, yeah, I mean that, and I think you look at all this. By the way, we have like an Iowa total here, 36.5. This is an NFL game with 36.5. That speaks to the Giants offense, and the Steelers haven't lit it up yet. But now with a game under his belt, you saw a much better Russell Wilson, I think, in the second half last week than the first half. The Giants defense has not been awful this year, and so I can't really put it on the Giants defense, but their offense is just it's not good. And I think this number will go up as we get towards Monday. We're gonna need the Giants in this game.
Oh, I guarantee we might. Matter of fact, I think you'll have a good chance of hitting 7 come Monday night. Just a word to you, handicappers out there, players. When you see these midweek moves, particularly in college, they're wise guy moves. And I would say the same in the pros. You see a lot of dog money showing up. Those are wise guy moves. Now, you might want to be with the wise guys. There's nothing wrong with being against them, as long as you make sure you do your homework and make sure you pick your spots. So we did get some wise guy moves this week on a lot of dogs. Now, I know the way guys always feel there's going to be a regression to the mean. The last couple of weeks, I got to tell you, we've gotten blasted by the public, but we've beat the hell out of the wise guys. That's not the problem.
Yeah.
So I see those guys coming in, but just understand how the market works. Now, in college, we will do a large percentage of our business tomorrow, but nowhere near what it is on the pros. On the pros, it's, they can overcome the wise guys. And I think this is a game here. They'll overcome the wise guys, even though they took 6.5 on this game. I think there's a great chance we close this game 7.
Yep.
So
right back to the opener then.
Yeah, pick your spots on how, and not so much I'm not telling you how to pick winners, but how to read the market and how to go from there. But if you like the Steelers, I'd probably lay the 6 right now. I kind of like the Steelers, but I've seen this team too many times. You mentioned Tomlin. I mean, his teams have had a habit of playing down the competition. What did I mention about half an hour ago? They lost to Arizona and New England.
Yeah.
2 teams they absolutely should have beat.
Yeah.
And if they beat them, they had a chance to get a home field in the playoffs last year.
They could have won the division last year.
They could have won the division. And they blew 2 games they absolutely had no business losing. This is one of those games where they could lose this game. Even though they're clearly better than the Giants 90% of the time, this could easily be one of those 10%.
I will say this for the Steelers, because they have to keep pace with Baltimore, who just is just running through everybody with 5 straight wins after that 0-2 start. You win this game. Look, the Steelers still have both games with Baltimore left.
They have the whole division left, don't they?
All 6.
They do.
They have not played a division game yet.
By the way, they've played well
possible?
against Baltimore in the past. Very, very well.
I don't understand the scheduling.
Again, a lot of us, me included, have it in our brain that Kansas City and Baltimore are on a crash course to meet again in the AFC title game for the 2nd straight year. The Steelers are the one team that can throw the wrench in that, because they can make Baltimore go on the road.
Yeah.
If Pittsburgh can continue to win games, and look, their schedule is not overly difficult. It is not easy, because they still have to play the whole division, and they get Kansas City on Christmas night.
Okay, well, that's 2 Cleveland games, too.
2 Cleveland games. Cincinnati's not the same. They have the Keystone battle against Philadelphia later in the year as well.
Keep an eye on Buffalo, too, though. And I think that the Bills and the Steelers are just fine with everybody talking about the
Ravens
Chiefs
and
the Ravens.
Yeah, I look for Buffalo again. Buffalo's been at their best when they have not had the huge expectations. Yeah. Look at last year. The season looked lost. They ended up with the 2 seed. And arguably the best team they've had in the Allen era last year.
Right.
So we'll see how it all plays out.
And look at the division.
All right, Chris, before we go, 6 plays this week for you. You want me to roll through them for everybody?
Run through them.
All right. Chris Andrews is going with the fired coach special with East Carolina this week. There we go.
I've been waiting to use the gavel.
Jeez.
There it is.
You okay?
Listen, it's not. Italians don't like to see gavels. I'm just saying.
Well, defendant, please rise. Good.
ECU -8 is pick 1 for Chris. Notre Dame -14 is pick 2 for Chris. Hit it. There we go. Pick 3. Lil Big was asking about this game before, but I think we already knew this was going to happen. Chris Andrews is on Louisiana Monroe again, +7.
It's been my team this year.
Yes, they have. LSU +1.5 in the big game in Texas Station.
You hear that one? Okay.
You need to go a little louder, actually.
No.
There we go.
There's a friend of mine out there I know likes LSU.
Utah -4.5 in their game against Houston.
I'm going to give a
small gavel on that one. And then
what is that, a lean?
No, it's a play, but my confidence isn't soaring on that one.
The last one that Chris added during the show,
yeah,
the Arizona Cardinals +4 against the Miami Dolphins. That gavel is going to be utilized.
I'm bringing my attorney next week.
Yeah, I love it.
That's all we got for you. We're back tomorrow. Alex and I get you ready for the slate.
Is Oscar Goodman still practicing?
8 a.m. tomorrow for this one. There we go. I don't know what's going on with the box right now, but there you go. We'll see you again tomorrow at 8 a.m. Vinny, Chris, great job as always. Jerry, Vince, Ryan, Drew Doug, thank
Good
you
job,
as always.
everybody.
Ann and Sean,
Jeff,
wherever you may be, great
Vinny,
work as always. We'll
Young
see you again.
Boombots, Ryan,
We'll see you
Jerry,
again tomorrow at 8
Drew
a.m.
Doug.
here on Sports by the Book.